Urban Pokémon. The strongest trainer. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. Have you never seen pork? Killing you instantly doesn't seem to be difficult. Is there any other information? Sun Haiyang thought for a while and then spoke again. After all, Sun Haiyang knew exactly what kind of strength his younger brother was. He is even at the bottom of the family. After hearing Sun Haiyang's words, Sun Haitao had 10,000 divine beasts rushing past in his heart. The reason why Sun Haitao wanted to spar with others when he saw them was because he wanted to prove himself, but he never expected that his eldest sister would be completely rude. Although he felt very aggrieved, he never dared to speak out. Since his brother is also a newly graduated scholar, his sister should not be too strong. I didn't expect that the Zhu family will send out all newcomers this time. Seeing Sun Haitao not speaking, Sun Haiyang thought that Sun Haitao would never have any more information. However, Sun Haiyang was somewhat interested in the brother and sister mentioned by Sun Haitao. Seeing Sun Haiyang's attitude, Chen Tiandao felt even more fear in his heart. Needless to say, Zhu Tiandao would definitely be in big trouble if his sister targeted him. Zhu Tiandao, don't blame me. I can't help it. I will die as a Taoist friend, but not as a poor Taoist. On the other side, Zhu Tiandao, who was resting in the hotel, also suddenly sneezed, startling the squirrel next to him. Who is thinking of me? Zhu Tiandao scratched his head, as if among the few people he knew, no one would think of him. What Zhu Tiandao didn't know now was that he was already being targeted. It is true that Zhu Tiandao was also thinking about going to Xianshan tomorrow. The Zhu family didn't know how to explain after seeing Zhu Feng. The next day in Zhu Tiandao's room, Zhu Tiandao was also woken up by a squirrel sweeping his face with its tail. Zhu Tiandao also skillfully threw the squirrel aside and finally got up and started to wash briefly and eat breakfast again. By noon, they all gathered at the door of the hotel. Let's go, it's time for us to set off, Zhu Zhi said, and finally got into a dark car first. Then Zhu Tiandao and Zhu King quickly followed by a pair of luxurious motorcades slowly heading out of the suburbs from the hotel entrance. Not long after, they drove to a luxurious villa outside the suburbs and parked the car at the door of the villa. As soon as the car stopped, several more doormen hurriedly came forward and opened the door. So Zhu Tiandao got out of the car and looked around. As expected of a big family, the environment here was like a paradise. And everything here is so well organized. Everything looks so well organized. It turns out it's you, Zhu Laozhen. Just as Zhu Tiandao was admiring the surrounding environment, a heroic voice rang out. Then a big man walked towards them. Wang Laoa, the person I least want to see is you. Zhu Zhi also said hello with a smile. It's true. I tricked you last time. I didn't expect you to still hold a grudge. It's been so many years. The big man didn't have the slightest bit of embarrassment and greeted him with a smile. As soon as I arrived, I turned around and glanced at Zhu Tiandao and Zhu King. Are these two your nephews and nieces? As children of a big family, they are naturally well informed. That's right, brother Zhu Tiandao and sister Zhu King. Zhu Zhi introduced briefly, then turned his head and said to Zhu Tiandao and the other two people next to him. This is Wang Haijin from the Wang family in Shandong. You can just call him Uncle Wang. Hello, Uncle Wang. Zhu Tiandao and Zhu King also said hello quickly. In his opinion, Uncle Wang has a very good relationship with their Zhu family. Not bad, not bad. The boy is handsome and the girl is beautiful. I didn't expect that your scholar would really have two outstanding juniors. Wang Haijin also nodded with a smile. Where is it? None of you know that the twins of your Wang family are the truly outstanding descendants. Where are they? Why didn't you see them? Zhu Zhi and Wang Haijin also began to praise each other. Of course, everyone likes to hear nice words, and the two of them laughed and laughed all night long. I asked them to go in first. Let's go in together. After saying that, the two of them walked side by side towards the villa, chatting as they walked. It turned out that Zhu Xiandao was watching from the side and could tell that the relationship between the two of them was indeed not simple and they should move around frequently on weekdays. After walking in, I found that the huge villa was like a cocktail party all day long and there were many people in the hall at this time. The pair of twins mentioned before also came over at this time. The boy was named Wang Rui and the girl was named Wang Xin. Wang Rui also has the same careless personality as his father. He just saw Zhu Xiandao calling him brother. As for Wang Xin, she was much shy, especially after seeing the squirrel on Zhu Xiandao's shoulder. Her eyes lit up, and she wanted to touch it, but was too embarrassed to do so. Zhu Xiandao was chatting with Wang Rui, who was familiar with him. Suddenly Zhu Xiandao felt a line of sight staring at him, and Zhu Xiandao also turned around. Immediately afterwards, Zhu Xiandao also saw a beautiful girl looking at him curiously, and next to him stood a boy who was trembling slightly, and that young man was Sun Haitao. After seeing Zhu Xiandao's eyes, Sun Haitao gave Zhu Xiandao a bitter smile. His previous palm prints were completely gone, and he looked like a child, standing obediently next to the woman. Zhu Xiandao also looked at it with some doubts. What kind of identity was the woman in front of him? Sun Haitao was so capable that he didn't even dare to move. At this time, the woman also showed a playful smile and then winked at Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao's eyes twitched when he saw this. This girl must be too open-minded. She was just ogling her for the first time when they met. But looking at the female protagonist in front of him, he is definitely still a little moved. I have to say that the woman in front of me is the best choice in terms of appearance and temperament. Especially the white dress made him look like a fairy descending to earth. HMPH. At this moment, there was also a cold snort, accompanied by an icy breath. Zhu Xiandao suddenly felt his whole body tremble, and then turned his head to look at Zuking with a look of contempt. It looks good, right? Have you never seen pork before? Zuking said angrily. Chapter 77 Inexplicable Feelings. You think too much, I'm just a little weird. Zhu Xiandao also shook his head. Although he did have a little heartbeat just now, he was more curious. Don't be fooled by Zhang Haiyang's appearance. Although she looks very cute on the surface, everyone who knows her knows that this person is a female devil. Hearing Zuking's words, Zhu Xiandao was also a little incredible and glanced at Zhang Haiyang. If Zuking hadn't reminded him, Zhu Xiandao really couldn't see that the person in front of him had any connection with the female devil. At this time, there was also a rumored noise in the distance. Zhu Xiandao turned his head and looked over again, and then a group of people walked out of the villa. Needless to say, there would be no one else who could walk out of the villa except the people of Xianshan Zhu family. Then, at the moment when the group of people just appeared, Zhu Xiandao saw the familiar figure at a glance, and Zhu Feng at this time was no longer dressed in the same clothes as before. At this time, Zhu Feng was even more dressed in a black dress, matched with his perfect face. The whole person looked so tall and noble. This is a proper white, rich and beautiful. For a moment, Zhu Xiandao couldn't even associate with the somewhat violent Zhu Feng. But Zhu Xiandao could even see a trace of sadness on Zhu Feng's face. At the same time, the people of Xianshan Zhu family were shivering with each other with several other people. It's no wonder that those people must be from other big families. I don't know why, but Zhu Xiandao suddenly found that there was a young man next to Zhu Feng, who was trying his best to talk to Zhu Feng, as if he was chatting up. At that moment, Zhu Xiandao suddenly felt a little angry in his heart. I don't know why Zhu Xiandao wanted to rush up and beat that person up, but after seeing a hint of impatience in Zhu Feng's eyes, Zhu Xiandao's anger dissipated a little. After Zhu Xiandao reacted, he also looked at the scene in front of him with a puzzled look, not knowing why he was suddenly angry. He and Zhu Feng were just ordinary friends. Why did he feel so unhappy when he saw him with other men? He really can show off. Wang Haijun also complained immediately. Of course, he only spoke in a low voice, and the head of the Zhu family didn't hear what he said. After all, Wang Haijun was close to Zhu Zhi, so he had some conflicts with the Xianshan Zhu family. There's nothing we can do about it. After all, this is their territory. If they want to show off, we can only bear it. The conversation between Zhu Zhi and Wang Heijun also made Zhu Xiandao come back to his senses again, and then he turned around silently. He didn't know why he couldn't see the scene of Zhu Feng with other men. At this time, Zhu Xiandao was also thinking in his heart what was going on. Could it be that he really liked Zhu Feng? At this time, Zhu Xiandao also began to think wildly. At this time, Zhu Feng, who had been exhausted from dealing with it, couldn't help but see a familiar figure in the corner of his eyes. The moment he saw Zhu Xiandao's figure, because Zhu Xiandao had his back to him, Zhu Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. It seemed that no one had ever given him such a familiar feeling. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Looking at Zhu Feng's puzzled eyes, the young man next to him suddenly spoke. It's nothing, brother. Let's go quickly. Zhu Feng immediately followed his father's footsteps after he finished speaking. Then some of them also greeted the people present and finally walked towards Zhu Xiandao. Master Zhu, Master Wang, it's been a long time since we last met. Just after meeting, the people of Xianshan Zhu family also walked up to a middle-aged man and greeted him with a gentle face. Master Zhu, it's been a long time since we last met. Zhu Zhi also responded calmly, without any expression on his face. I say, Zhu-kun, you are really not kind enough. You greeted everyone before looking for us. Wang Heijun said even more bluntly. This can't be helped. It's not my fault. I also have to greet one by one. Who told you to stand so far away? If you stood in front, I would definitely be the first to greet you. Zhu-kun also said in an apologetic tone, but his eyes were indifferent. Then Zhu Xiandao listened to the conversation between several people, and his heart slowly calmed down. After the dream came to an end, Zhu Xiandao turned around. Just when Zhu Xiandao turned around, he suddenly saw a cold face in front of him. Male Zhu Xiandao was also speechless at this time. Those who can be the head of a family are all real movie stars, with one set on the surface and another set on the back. Zhu Feng, who had been paying attention to Zhu Xiandao, saw Zhu Xiandao turn around, and his eyes widened. His eyes were full of disbelief. The young man next to him also kept paying attention to Zhu Feng's expression, and then looked in the direction of Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao also saw Zhu Feng's expression, and then smiled and nodded. After defeating them for a few games, Zhu-kun also put them behind Zhu Zhi. This is your daughter Zhu-king. Zhu-kun also looked at Zhu-king and said calmly, hello, Uncle Zhu. Zhu-king also said very well, hello. Zhu-kun nodded. No matter what, he still had to be polite. Then he looked at Zhu Xiandao next to me. No matter what, as an enemy, he knew the Sichuan scholar in detail. But for the person in front of him, Zhu-kun really couldn't remember him, as if the Zhu family didn't have this person at all. I wonder who this person is? Then Zhu Zhi also glanced at Zhu Xiandao, but didn't say anything to signal Zhu Xiandao to introduce himself. Zhu Xiandao was a little headache when he saw this, but he still stepped forward. Zhu family. Zhu Xiandao meets the head of the Zhu family. Zhu Xiandao's tone was neither humble nor arrogant. Hello. Zhu-kun also said politely, and at the same time he was thinking about who this person was. Even if he racked his brains, he couldn't think of this name. But he admired the momentum of Zhu Xiandao very much. Among the younger generation, Zhu Xiandao's momentum was also good. He has just become a formal trainer, and I just brought him here to learn more. Zhu Zhi spoke again at this time. No matter what Zhu Xiandao said, he naturally couldn't let the other party know his trump card this time. Chapter 78. Long time no see. Finally, Zhu-kun introduced Zhu Feng and the young man next to Zhu Feng to Zhu Xiandao. And the young man next to Zhu Feng was Zhu Feng's brother, Zhu Gang. Hearing the introduction, Zhu Xiandao also politely greeted the other party, shook hands, and then looked at Zhu Feng next to him. At this time, Zhu Feng also came back to his senses. When Zhu Xiandao introduced himself just now, Zhu Feng's heart was even more mixed. He never thought that his friend would not get along with his family. Of course, at the same time, Zhu Kangzinai was also happy. After all, Zhu Xiandao was a child of a big family and his status was the same as his. But although they were almost the same in terms of family, they could be regarded as a good match, but they were still a little helpless. After all, as children of a big family, many of their behaviors were not decided by themselves, and many times they had to rely on the family to decide. In the end, in front of the family, sometimes they were even just a tool. Long time no see. Zhu Feng also said in a flat tone. Long time no see. Zhu Xiandao also replied in a calm tone. Zhu Kun, who was standing next to him, was also a little surprised after hearing this. He then looked at the two of them and said, "Do you know each other?" Even Zhu Zhi looked at Zhu Xiandao in confusion. "We have met before, and even played a match. I have some impression of him." Zhu Feng spoke first before Zhu Xiandao spoke. Zhu Xiandao also looked at him in confusion, and Zhu Feng suddenly realized that Zhu Feng just didn't want them to know about their relationship. "So that's how it is. You have sparred before, right? It seems that you know each other well, but who won that battle?" Zhu Kun also said confidently. After all, Zhu Feng has been training outside, and Zhu Kun also knows this. It is normal to meet some people and fight with some masters outside. Of course, he also knows that Zhu Feng's strength is one of the best among the younger generation. It goes without saying that the winner must be his daughter. He said this just to disgust Zhu Zhi. Hu and Zhu actually looked at Zhu Xiandao with curiosity, because he knew Zhu Xiandao's strength, which was not comparable to that of ordinary people. "It's just a tie," Zhu Feng said lightly. Zhu Feng's words just finished, and Zhu Kun and Zhu Zhi next to him were shocked. Both of them knew that Zhu Feng had graduated for more than a year, and he didn't know how long he had been training outside, and how many hardships he had experienced. But Zhu Xiandao just graduated this year, and he could even be said to be a complete novice. But such a novice actually tied with a genius like Zhu Feng. How strong is Zhu Xiandao? After being stunned for a while, Zhu Zhi came back to his senses and thought that it was normal with Zhu Xiandao's terrifying talent. Then he took another look at the shocked look on Zhu Kun's face, and knew that his previous plan to hide Zhu Xiandao's strength had failed. But he felt a little happy that he could shock Zhu Kun. "Of course, we are just using an elf to decide the outcome in one game. If I'm really serious, I should not be Miss Zhu Feng's opponent," Zhu Xiandao also said modestly. However, although Zhu Xiandao said it modestly, Zhu Kun and Zhu Gang also started fighting again. Zhu Xiandao looked at Zhu Xiandao with a serious look. In the end, he kept looking between Zhu Feng and Zhu Xiandao to see something. Looking at the attitudes of the two people, he always felt that the relationship between the two people was not that simple. But everyone also knew that, since the two people didn't want to say it, no matter how they asked, they would not get any results. After chatting for a while, Zhu Kun also said goodbye and left, saying that he was going to prepare for the next thing. Then, Zhu Kun also left with a group of people behind him. When Zhu Feng left, he glanced at Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Gang next to him naturally kept paying attention to Zhu Feng's expression, and frowned slightly after seeing it. "Which Pokémon did you use when you competed with him?" Zhu Gang also said in confusion. As long as he knew which Pokémon Zhu Feng used, he would have an understanding of Zhu Xiandao's strength. "I used Haxorus," the wife said indifferently. After hearing this, Zhu Gang's eyes were even more shocked. Haxorus was the strongest Pokémon in Zhu Feng's hands. Moreover, Zhu Gang also knew that Zhu Feng would not use Hakron in general. Thinking back to the past month, his sister often showed a dazed look. Before, he thought that she was thinking about something. Now he just realized that she was not thinking about things but people. If he guessed correctly, then this person should be Zhu Xiandao. On the other hand, Zhu Gang also remembered the eldest young master of the Zhang family who had been pestering his sister recently, and then he felt that this matter suddenly became much more interesting. If the two young masters were jealous of each other, it would be quite interesting. Not long after, the people of the Zhu family also arranged a small show, which made the scene much more lively. Mr. Jin Zhu Kun also walked to the stage and said some words of thanks. Then came the cocktail party. During the cocktail party, people from the major families also came and went, and everyone greeted each other. And Zhu Xiandao also knew that these were just some foreplay, and the real good show was still to come. After all, everyone knew that so many big families gathered together this time, but there were more important things to discuss. At this time, Zhu Xiandao was also alone in a corner where no one noticed. Zuking also took Wangs into the circle of girls, gossiping constantly. You are the only one. At this moment, a voice sounded. Zhu Xiandao turned his head and then saw Sun Haitao walking towards him with 2 glasses of wine. Next to Zhang Haitao, there was a girl called the female devil. Zhu Xiandao was also a little afraid and glanced at the female devil next to Sun Haitao. Although I don't know why this woman is called the female devil, I don't need to think about it to know that this woman is definitely not simple. Nothing, I just feel that I'm not very good at such gatherings. Zhu Xiandao said lightly. What Zhu Xiandao said was also the truth. Compared with this group of people pretending to be flattering, Zhu Xiandao prefers to stay here alone and watch them act. And Sun Haiying next to him also looked at Zhu Xiandao curiously. He could feel that Zhu Xiandao was indeed different from the people present. Chapter 79 All Movie Kings. I'm really not good at it. Look at how good the relationship between these people is on the surface. If you don't know, you would think they are close friends. But everyone present knows that this group of people just want to get a piece of fat meat from the other party. I'm really not good at this kind of intrigue. Zhu Xiandao also explained. Zhu Xiandao really admired this group of people. It's no exaggeration to say that in Zhu Xiandao's eyes, all these people present are movie emperors. After hearing this, Sun Haiying also looked around. He knew everything about the big family. Born in such a family, this kind of thing is really normal, but he really didn't care about it before. You are indeed different from the people here. Everyone knows these things, but no one dares to say it. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sun Haiying, and I'm the sister of this silly guy. After Sun Haiying finished speaking, she took the initiative to extend her hand. My name is Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao briefly introduced himself, and he knew without thinking that the other party must know his information well. Finally, he stretched out his hand and shook the girl's hand. At the moment of shaking, Zhu Xiandao felt a delicate and soft feeling, which made Zhu Xiandao's body tremble slightly. Then Zhu Xiandao was ready to let go, but who knew that, although he wanted to let go, the other party didn't mean to. Moreover, Zhu Xiandao felt that the other party suddenly used force to attract Zhu Xiandao. Without the slightest defense, he was pulled forward by Sun Haiying. Then he saw Sun Haiying again, and took a step forward. Finally, a pretty face appeared in Zhu Xiandao's ears. Zhu Xiandao could even smell the unique fragrance of the girl. I'm quite interested in you. It happens that I'm also single. Are you interested in being my boyfriend? Sun Haiying's words also rang in Zhu Xiandao's ears, especially when he felt the warm wind in his ears. Zhu Xiandao's body was also trembling, even more severely. Sun Haitao next to him also held his forehead and looked at Zhu Xiandao with sympathy. This was not the first time Chen Haitao had seen such a thing. Sun Haitao could even imagine that, if Zhu Xiandao agreed, Sun Haiying would definitely shout molest immediately. Of course, if Zhu Xiandao was shy, Sun Haiying would tease Zhu Xiandao even more. Of course, when Zhu Xiandao finally agreed, he also said molest. From the beginning to the end, Sun Haiying was just teasing Zhu Xiandao. Thinking of the teenagers who had been teased and cheated by Sun Haiying for so many years, Sun Haitao felt sorry for Zhu Xiandao. For Sun Haiying, he liked to tease anyone who could interest him. Zhu Xiandao was a little surprised when he came to his senses. He didn't expect that he was teased by someone, and then he was completely confused at this time. Originally, Zhu Xiandao was also very shy about this kind of thing, but suddenly a figure flashed through Zhu Xiandao's mind. What surprised Zhu Xiandao even more was that the figure that flashed by was so similar to Zhu Feng, and then Zhu Xiandao came back to his senses. I'm sorry, Miss Sun, I have someone I like. After Zhu Xiandao came back to his senses, he pulled away and said lightly. After hearing this, Sun Haiying's eyes flashed with surprise. She had seen countless people, but she had never seen anyone who could be indifferent to her moves. The most surprising thing was that Sun Haiying saw it clearly just now. Zhu Xiandao had a slight reaction to her moves just now, but for some reason Zhu Xiandao suddenly came back to his senses. Could it be that Zhu Xiandao really had someone he liked? Sun Haiying also took 2 steps back, and then she chatted with Zhu Xiandao more curiously. I have to say that you are indeed different from other men. I'm more interested in you. Zhu Xiandao also frowned. Could this woman in front of him have some problem with her brain? Then Zhu Xiandao was a little creepy, thinking that although Sun Haiying looked very beautiful and cold at this time, in Zhu Xiandao's mind and etiquette, he felt like a female devil. Sun Haiying, who was next to him, was relieved when he saw this. Fortunately, things did not become the worst situation, and looking at his sister's appearance, he should not have any other actions for the time being. Then Sun Haiying also chatted with Zhu Xiandao, and they talked about some simple topics. And Zhu Xiandao also responded politely. Of course, he was thinking about other things in his mind. Then Zhu Xiandao also saw Zhu Feng appear again in the venue, and Zhu Feng was also looking around to get food. Then a man appeared next to Zhu Feng, talking about something incessantly, and Zhu Feng was full of impatience all over his body. After seeing this action, Zhu Xiandao's unhappy mood appeared again. At this time, Zhu Xiandao did not have the leisure time to pay attention to Sun Haiying next to him, and then put down the wine glass in his hand, said hello, and went in the direction of Zhu Feng. The squirrel, who was eating cakes at the table, quickly followed Zhu Xiandao. Sun Haiying and Sun Haiying, who were standing next to him, also looked in the direction of Zhu Xiandao's action. As expected, it seems that he really has someone he likes. This is even more interesting. Then Sun Haiying also smiled playfully. Sun Haiying, who was standing next to him, trembled all over when he saw his sister's appearance. It makes sense that his sister is called a female devil. It can be said that in this circle, many people have done things to their sisters. It can be said that no one is not afraid of their sisters. After walking to the center of the venue, Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zhu Feng, who was looking around. Zhu Feng naturally saw Zhu Xiandao and then walked towards Zhu Xiandao with a happy face. I have been looking for you for a long time. Zhu Feng was the first to speak. It just so happens that I have something to tell you. Zhu Xiandao also smiled and nodded. The man next to him also frowned slightly, obviously very unhappy with Zhu Xiandao's appearance. Excuse me, Mr. Zhang, I have something else to do, so I'll leave you first. After saying that, the young man next to Li Hui followed Zhu Xiandao and walked away. Then Zhu Xiandao also glanced at the man called Mr. Zhang. Then he turned around and left, and the young man who stayed there at this time had a sullen face. Looking at the backs of the 2 people leaving, his eyes flashed with anger. Chapter 80. He is very strong. Investigate who that guy is. The boy's tone was full of anger. If eyes could kill, Zhu Xiandao would have died thousands of times. Master, that guy seems to be from the Zhu family in Sichuan. Nonsense. I don't need you to tell me about this kind of thing. I want his detailed information. The boy turned his head and looked at the big man beside him viciously. It goes without saying that he is a descendant of another big family, and what the boy wants to know is Zhu Xiandao's status in the Zhu family. Master, I'm really sorry. There is no such person in the information we got. He just suddenly appeared in the Zhu family. The previous information is all blank. The big man said tremblingly. You mean, apart from knowing that he is from the Zhu family, there is no other information, right? The boy also looked at the big man beside him with an angry face. Doesn't this mean that he doesn't even have any information about his competitors? After hearing this, the big man lowered his head and didn't know what to say. Then why are you asking here? Why don't you hurry up and find out clearly? The boy said even more angrily. On the other side, Zhu Feng also took Zhu Xiandao to an empty balcony. The 2 of them also looked at each other. They had a lot to say, but they didn't know where to start. Explain it first. What's going on? You are actually from the Zhu family in Sichuan? After a long time, Zhu Feng suddenly spoke. This matter also surprised Zhu Feng very much. If he had known that Zhu Xiandao was from the Zhu family in Sichuan, I'm afraid the 2 of them would not have been so close. But now, Zhu Xiandao didn't say anything yet, but stared at Zhu Feng with big eyes, incredulously, because Zhu Feng's words were extremely gentle, and the look in his eyes when he looked at him was also extremely gentle. For a moment, Zhu Xiandao didn't know how to reply. Looking at Zhu Xiandao in a daze, Zhu Feng was even more angry. Why are you in a daze? Didn't you hear what I said? Zhu Feng also instantly became as hot-tempered as before. Seeing Zhu Feng's current attitude, Zhu Xiandao also came back to his senses. This is Zhu Feng in a normal state. You can't blame me for this. I only found out about it last month. I was also forced to return to the family. Zhu Xiandao said innocently, explaining to Zhu Feng that he had not intended to hide his identity before. You only found out about your true identity last month. Could it be that you are the illegitimate child of the Zhu family? Zhu Feng also stared at Zhu Xiandao with wide eyes. This kind of thing often happens in a big family. Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched. He didn't seem to be an illegitimate child. This is not an illegitimate child. How should I put it? I was originally a member of the Zhu family, but my father ran away from home, and this time I was sent back to the family by my father. Zhu Xiandao continued to explain. Then Zhu Feng nodded, and he understood what happened, but suddenly Zhu Feng's face changed. Is your father Zhu Xianli? Zhu Feng stared at Zhu Xiandao with wide eyes, looking at him in disbelief. And Zhu Xiandao also nodded, with a hint of embarrassment on his face. It seems that everyone knows his father's name. So it's you, your father again, the one who made my aunt so embarrassed. I said that the moment I saw you. I thought you were particularly annoying. Sure enough, the son of a mouse will dig a hole. Like father, like son. Zhu Feng looked at Zhu Xiandao with resentment. Zhu Xiandao's face was even more embarrassed. It seemed that this matter had nothing to do with him. Don't just ask about my business. I also want to ask how you have been doing in the past month. Zhu Xiandao also hurriedly changed the subject. After hearing Zhu Xiandao's words, Zhu Feng's mood calmed down. In the end, there was a hint of hesitation on his face, not knowing how to start. I'm doing okay. Zhu Xiandao looked at Zhu Feng's depressed face. How could he not know that something must have happened to Zhu Feng in the past month? We are also friends. If you trust me, can you tell me the truth? Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zhu Feng seriously. Hearing Zhu Xiandao's words, Zhu Feng also looked up at Zhu Xiandao with a serious look on her face. She opened her mouth but hesitated. Don't you believe me? Or are there some things you don't want to tell me? Zhu Xiandao continued to ask. Zhu Feng looked at Zhu Xiandao's attitude and didn't know why she wanted to pour out all the bitterness in her heart. There's nothing that can't be said. It's just that the Zhang family found my father and proposed the idea of marriage. Zhu Feng said a little irritably. When she thought of this, Zhu Feng was furious. She had only met the eldest young master of the Zhang family once. But recently, the eldest young master Zhang has been pestering her, and she was almost annoyed by him. Hearing this, Zhu Xiandao didn't know why he suddenly felt a surge of anger. Did your father agree? But looking at Zhu Feng's expression, Zhu Xiandao was relieved a lot. No matter what, at least Zhu Feng didn't agree. At least Zhu Xiandao was happy. Of course not. How could I agree to such a thing directly? My father also said that he wanted to see if the other party had real skills in the friendly match this afternoon. But my father also told me to get in touch with the man named Zhang Lifeng recently. Zhu Feng also said with an unhappy face. The Zhang Lifeng you mentioned is the one who has been following you? Zhu Xiandao also felt a surge of anger in his heart, which was particularly uncomfortable. That's right, he has been by my side like a fly, and I'm almost annoyed by him. Zhu Feng also said with a look of disgust. Zhu Xiandao was silent for a while, and then his eyes lit up. You just said that your father wanted to see his performance in the friendly match, right? That is to say, if your father thinks that he is a fool with no ability, then your father will not agree to your marriage with him. After hearing this, Zhu Feng turned his head. Of course, if he is a waste, how could my father agree? After all, strength is everything in such a family. You don't want to beat him in the friendly match. He is quite strong. Chapter 81 I can help you. Are you sure you can do it? Zhu Feng was also a little worried, looking at Zhu Xiandao. Is he very strong? Zhu Xiandao knew nothing about Zhang Fengli's strength, but with Zhu Feng around to tell him about it, he could understand a lot about Zhang Lifeng's situation. He is the same age as me, which means he has been a formal trainer for 2 years. His strength should not be underestimated. Zhu Feng also looked at Zhu Xiandao worriedly. If Zhu Xiandao was the same age as her and had more than a year of experience, then Zhu Feng would not be so worried. But Zhu Feng knew that Zhu Xiandao was just a trainer who had just graduated. That's easy. As long as I can beat him. Think about it. He is a trainer who graduated 2 years ago and is not as good as a newcomer. What will everyone think then? Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly, and his heart was full of confidence. If you can really do it, then everyone will think that he is a vase that does not live up to his name. Hearing Zhu Xiandao's words, Zhu Feng's eyes lit up. This method really works. Of course, for these rich children, each of them is very proud, but no matter what, as long as I can beat him, then the rest is not important at all. Zhu Xiandao also said confidently, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly after he finished speaking. Zhu Xiandao was already very unhappy with Zhang Lifeng before, and now is the time for him to vent. And now Zhu Xiandao also knows that I do have Zhu Feng in my heart, and I also regard Zhu Feng as my woman. Seeing other men hooking up with my woman, no matter who it is, they will be angry. And now Zhu Xiandao has decided to step on his competitor to death, stepping on him so that he will never be able to turn over. Are you sure you want to do this? Let's not talk about whether you can beat him or not. Even if you really beat him, you will offend the Zhang family. This is not good. Zhu Feng was even more worried. Looking at Zhu Xiandao, no matter what, their Sichuan Zhu family and his Xianshan Zhu family are not getting along. What's the big deal? Think about it. Sichuan Zhu Jia and your Xianshan Zhu Jiashan have already made enemies. If you really succeed in your marriage with Zhang Jia, their merchants will still be our opponents. Sooner or later, they will be enemies. What's the difference? Zhu Xiandao said nonchalantly. Sooner or later, they will be enemies. It's better to strike first. Zhu Xiandao is still clear about this principle. This is a good idea. Just as the two were discussing, a voice suddenly sounded behind Zhu Xiandao. The voice startled the two people instantly, and then they turned around immediately. I don't know when, Zhu Feng's brother Zhu Gang has appeared behind them, and he is also looking at the two people in front of him with a smile. Zhu Gang thought that his sister must have something with this man, but he never thought that his sister's heart was abducted by this man. And Zhu Xiandao's idea is really good. If it can succeed, even Zhu Gang will look at Zhu Xiandao with new eyes. Brother. At this time, Zhu Feng also hurriedly ran to Zhu Gang, holding Zhu Gang's arm, and said a little embarrassedly. It felt like she had done something wrong, and was just discovered by someone, and her face was full of shyness. Zhu Xiandao did not speak, looking at Zhu Gang in front of him, not knowing what he was thinking now. What made Zhu Xiandao feel the most terrified was Zhu Xiandao's body, but it was strengthened by the system, and his senses were very sharp. But Zhu Gang walked behind him, and it was obvious that he had stayed behind him for a long time. But Zhu Xiandao did not notice it at all. Was it because he was too involved just now that he did not notice the situation around him, or was it because Zhu Gang himself was a master? You can rest assured. No matter what, Zhu Feng is also my sister, and I will naturally stand on my sister's side. And you are also a child of a big family. If you are really better than that Zhang Lifeng, then naturally my sister likes something, and I will definitely support her with all my strength. After Zhu Gang finished speaking to Zhu Xiandao, he turned his head and looked at Zhu Feng next to him. Father is looking for you. Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zhu Gang in front of him seriously. He could also see that Zhu Gang was definitely not an ordinary person. You know, the Zhu family of Xianshan and the Zhu family of Sichuan have grievances, but Zhu Xiandao could not see the slightest expression on Zhu Gang's face. At that moment, Zhu Xiandao even felt that there was no grievance between the two families. However, Zhu Xiandao misunderstood Zhu Gang's thoughts. Zhu Gang really didn't take these things to heart at all. After all, it is easy to resolve enemies, but difficult to make them. And if his sister really has ideas about Zhu Xiandao, then for their two families, there is really no harm. As for the two people wanting to pit the Zhang family, he was also willing to see it. After all, he was a little uncomfortable with the Zhang family, especially in terms of dealing with people. Their Zhang family is too arrogant. Then I'll go first. Zhu Feng also nodded to Zhu Xiandao, and then prepared to leave. but suddenly he remembered something and turned his head, looking at the squirrel on Zhu Xiandao's shoulder. I didn't expect you to be able to subdue such a cute elf. I think if Zhang Na saw it, she would definitely like it and might even snatch it away from you. After saying that, Zhu Feng also turned and left. Hearing Zhu Feng's words, Zhu Xiandao was also a little helpless. With Zhang Na's personality, it seemed that she could really do such a thing. You don't need to worry. When we fight later, I will do something and let you challenge Zhang Lifeng directly. As long as you can win, then I will help you say a few good words in front of my father. Zhu Gang also spoke slowly. After hearing this, Zhu Xiandao was also a little surprised. He didn't expect Zhu Gang's attitude to be so neutral. Zhu Xiandao could see that in Zhu Gang's eyes, the strong were respected. If he couldn't win, Zhu Gang would probably not help him at all. But Zhu Xiandao also knew that the other party was willing to help him. That was enough. The most important thing was to work hard. As long as he worked hard enough, he would naturally be able to impress everyone. Zhu Xiandao also knew that everyone had to draw lots before the game started. The higher the number drawn, the more likely you were to choose which family member to challenge. After deciding, the person you were challenging could not be changed, and the other party could not refuse. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82. It's our turn. Of course, there are no prizes for this competition. Although there are no prizes, each family will try their best to recommend. This is related to their own face, and no one will hold back. You should come out too. Suddenly Zhu Xiandao said to the empty balcony, I didn't expect you to be able to find me. Then Zhang Heian popped her head and stuck out her tongue. Zhu Xiandao was also a little embarrassed, looking at the woman in front of him eavesdropping on his conversation. There was no embarrassment on his face. You heard it all? Zhu Xiandao also said tentatively. It's not my fault. The two of you are so loud that it's hard not to hear. Zhang Heian also said with a smile. Zhu Xiandao also looked embarrassed. He finally knew why everyone called the woman in front of him a little devil. This is simply a guilty conscience, and there is no self-blame. You two are quite interesting. Do you want me to help you? Sun Heian suddenly said. Zhu Xiandao was also surprised, and then he said with some doubt, why do you also hate that man named Zhang Lifeng? Of course, for a person like him who has eyes on the top of his head, I guess no one would like him, and he has offended me before. Sun Heian said bluntly. Anyway, he had heard so much news, so he had to express his attitude. If you really want to, then I don't mind, but I'm curious about what you can do to help me. Zhu Xiandao said curiously. If there is one more helper, it will not be bad for him. I can cheer for you and help you shout 666. Sun Heian looked at Zhu Xiandao with a smile. Hearing Sun Heian's words, Zhu Xiandao even had an impulse to strangle the woman in front of him. I'm just kidding you. Don't look at me with that look. Sun Heian also looked like I'm timid. Don't scare me. I do have some information. I just happen to know what kind of spirit he has. Zhang Heian also said with a smile. Everyone should know about this, right? Zhu Xiandao said doubtfully. Zhang Lifeng has been a trainer for 2 years. His Pokémon should be well known. That's not the case. After all, each family only sent one person to each competition in the past few years. He hasn't participated in any competitions in the past 2 years. Not many people know his strength and his Pokémon. Sun Heian shook her head. Since not many people know, how did you know? Zhu Xiandao looked at Sun Heian in surprise. Of course he said it himself. I just used some tricks, and he told me all his information. Sun Heian said with a smug look on her face, as if she could accomplish this kind of trivial matter with just a flick of her finger. Zhu Xiandao looked at Sun Heian in front of him, and felt that he should be more careful when facing him in the future. He never knew when he would be tricked by this woman. Then Sun Heian released all her information. Finally, Sun Heian also said that I would mobilize the audience around me to help Zhu Xiandao speak. As long as Zhu Xiandao could win, he would definitely make Zhang Lifeng lose face. You care so much about me, so what do you want? Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zhang Heian in confusion. He didn't think that this woman would help him for free. It's very simple. I just have a grudge against him. As long as you can win, it's fine. Besides, I like to do such things. I think it's very interesting. Sun Heian said lightly. The male Zhu Xiandao was also speechless. This woman was really not simple. Those who wanted to offend her really didn't have a good end. Once she had a chance, she would pit them to death. It was really a female devil. And Zhu Xiandao also decided to be more cautious when facing him in the future. After chatting for a while, the two returned to the hotel, and at this time Zhu Zhi also looked at Zhu Xiandao. How is it? Are you sure? It's okay. Zhu Xiandao also said lightly. Anyway, he only had one goal, that is Zhang Lifeng. Are we going to draw lots for the competition soon? If you draw a number that's close to the front, who are you going to challenge? Zhu Zhi also looked at Zhu Xiandao curiously. Challenge Zhang Lifeng. Hearing Zhu Xiandao's words, Zhu Zhi was also a little surprised. Why are you challenging him? Zhu Zhi thought about it for a long time, but couldn't figure it out. After all, they didn't seem to have any grudges with the Zhang family, and Zhu Xiandao should be attending this kind of party for the first time, so the two of them shouldn't know each other. It's just some personal grudges. Hearing Zhu Xiandao's words again, Zhu Zhi's face was even more confused. He really couldn't figure out where the personal grudges between the two people came from. Could it be that something unpleasant happened in the past few moments? By the way, Uncle Zhu, if I win later, and Zhu Zhi hits him hard in the face, you'd better be prepared. Zhu Xiandao said lightly. If you step too hard later, it will cause the two families to have a grudge. Not long after, the friendly competition officially began, and all the contestants walked towards the back of the villa, where there was a dedicated competition venue. Wait a minute, and stand on the far right of the team. Zhu Gang whispered as he passed by Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao nodded slightly, knowing that Zhu Gang had already arranged everything. Now Zhu Xiandao knew that all the preparations were in place. As long as he showed his strength and proved that he was stronger than Zhang Lifeng, then all the outcomes were already determined. In a few minutes, a group of people came to the backyard of the villa. There was a regular venue here, and there was a circle of audience seats around it. At this time, people from various families were waiting in the audience seats. When all the contestants were ready, Zhu Kun walked onto the stage and picked up the microphone. Now, please ask the contestants from each family to come to the center of the venue and line up in a horizontal row. As soon as Zhu Kun finished speaking, all the contestants immediately took action. Let's go, it's our turn to go on stage. Zhu Xiandao said to Zhu King next to him, and Zhu Xiandao was also a little excited. Finally, he looked at Zhang Lifeng in the crowd. On the way, Zhu Xiandao also observed and found that there were 16 contestants. Zhu Xiandao was also a little confused. You know, there are a total of 12 big families here, but only 8 of them participated. Zhu Xiandao also figured it out later. After all, if some families are over 18 years old, they cannot participate. Some of these families probably don't have suitable young people. Chapter 83 Another Mission. Now we will officially start the draw. As soon as Zhu Kun finished speaking, a man holding a wooden box came over and first came to Zhu Xiandao, who was on the far left. Zhu Xiandao also reached out his hand and put his hand into the wooden box. Grabbed the bull on the left. He had just put his hand into the wooden box when he heard the man's soft voice. If Zhu Xiandao's body had not been strengthened by the system and his ears were more sensitive than those of ordinary people, he would probably not have heard it. Zhu Xiandao glanced at it indifferently, and after finding that the people around him did not notice it, he did it again according to the man's words. Sure enough, Zhu Xiandao found that there was a bull stuck to the box on the left in the box. Zhu Xiandao took out the bull with a little force. Looking at the number plate on it, Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly, and the man also let everyone choose the draw according to the process. Now please invite number 1 to stand on the stage. Zhu Kun also spoke again. Hearing this, Zhu Xiandao also stepped forward and walked towards the ring. I also saw Zhu Xiandao and the other families. Zhu Xiandao's eyes also had a hint of futures. Although they all knew that Zhu Xiandao was from the Zhu family, they really didn't know much about Zhu Xiandao. What good luck, he actually got number 1. Zhang Lifeng also looked at Zhu Xiandao viciously. Originally, he got number 4 and thought he was quite advanced. He could challenge Zhu Xiandao and teach him a lesson. But now it seems that he has no chance. Before the challenge, please introduce yourself and tell me your family name and age. Zhu Kun glanced at Zhu Xiandao and spoke again. Zhu family. Zhu Xiandao is 15 years old. Zhu Xiandao's voice was extremely loud, and everyone present could hear it clearly. After hearing the voice, the people around were also a little shocked. Isn't 15 years old just graduated? This is a complete novice. For a moment, everyone's eyes looking at Zhu Jia also changed, because they knew that in addition to Zhu Xiandao, another Zhu King was also a new graduate. Unexpectedly, the Zhu family actually sent 2 newcomers, aiming at combat experience, but it was very disadvantageous. Of course, Zhu Zhi had no such worries at all, no matter for his daughter or Zhu Xiandao. Moreover, even the children of other families around him looked at Zhu Xiandao with some doubts. After all, even when they just graduated, they did not have the courage to go to the ring. After all, those who can come here are children of big families, and each family will select the best Pokémon for them. A trainer who just graduated, and a trainer who has been trained by the family for more than a year are not at the same level at all. In their opinion, it is clear that Zhu Jia's 2 newcomers will definitely lose miserably this time. Next, please let Zhu Xiandao choose his opponent. Zhu Kun's voice sounded again. Zhang Lifeng of the Zhang family. And Zhu Xiandao's tone was also very firm, and it spread throughout the hall. For a moment, except for the 4 people who had already known about it, everyone else in the hall looked at Zhu Xiandao with surprise. Even Zhu Kun, who spoke, looked at Zhu Xiandao with some surprise. You have to know that the Zhu family of Xianshan and the Zhu family of Sichuan have a grudge. If Zhu Xiandao chooses someone from their Zhu family, he can understand it. But Zhu Kun really can't understand why Zhu Xiandao chooses someone from the Zhang family. On the other side, in the audience, the Zhang family's family, Zhang Haitian also turned his head and looked at Zhu Zhi. Old Zhu, shouldn't you explain to me what this means? There is another newcomer challenging my son. Do you think our Zhang family is easy to bully? This matter of the head of the Zhang family is really not my intention. This is his own choice. I brought them here this time mainly to gain experience, so whether they win or lose, I don't care at all. Zhu Zhi also said lightly. Really? In this case, don't blame me. If your Zhu family kid is abused, it's his own fault. Zhang Haitian said coldly. Zhang Haitian is also very confident in his son. His son is a genius, and he has graduated for more than 2 years. If he can't even deal with a newcomer, it will be a big shame if it gets out. Zhang Haitian still doesn't know that all of this is a conspiracy against their Zhang family. Even Zhang Yufeng and the team looked at Zhu Xiandao with surprise, but then he was very happy. He originally thought that he had no chance to teach Zhu Xiandao a lesson, but he didn't expect Zhu Xiandao to be so ignorant of life and death and personally delivered himself to the door. This is simply heaven has a road, but you don't take it. There is no door to hell, but you break in. Except Zhu Xiandao and Zhang Lifeng, everyone else will temporarily leave the competition venue. Following Zhu Kun's words, the others also began to leave. Zhang Lifeng also slowly walked towards the center of the competition venue, and then Zhu Xiandao and Zhang Yufeng also stood on the command platform at both ends. Side mission released. Defeat Zhang Lifeng to get the evolution stone. Won lottery number 3 times. With the voice of the system, Zhu Xiandao was also slightly surprised. He didn't expect that the system could still complete the task at this time, and he could also get an evolution stone. Is the evolution stone of the system the same as I thought? Zhu Xiandao suddenly became excited at this time. Evolution stone. Any elf designated by the system can be evolved directly. Hearing the voice of the system, Zhu Xiandao's face was filled with more joy. In other words, as long as he could win this game, he could make any elf under his command evolve to a higher level. You should know that the evolution of elves is more difficult as the game progresses, but with this evolution stone, Zhu Xiandao can even make any elf easily break through the last stage. You should know that there are many elves in this world who don't even have the ability and strength to break through to the last stage. It has only been a short time since the protagonist of Hainan graduated, but Zhu Xiandao already has the ability to evolve his spirit into the final form. I really didn't expect you to choose me. Zhang Lifeng's words also brought Zhu Xiandao back to reality. And Zhu Xiandao, looking at Zhang Lifeng at this time, his eyes were full of hostility. The system gave him another reason to win, so he had to win this time no matter what. And he had to win beautifully. Chapter 84. Because you are the strongest. You know I'm a newcomer, and I came here mainly to broaden my horizons. The reason I chose you is that I heard that you are the strongest among these contestants, so I also want to see what level you, the strongest among them, are at. Zhu Xiandao said lightly. The reason why Zhu Xiandao said this was to praise Zhang Lifeng. There is a saying that goes, the higher you climb, the harder you fall. Zhu Xiandao intends to make him fall completely and shamelessly. Zhang Lifeng on the opposite side was also a little surprised. Could it be that Zhu Xiandao really thought so? Although Zhang Lifeng is very confident in his own strength, he even thinks that he is the strongest among all the people present. This time, after hearing Zhu Xiandao's praise, Zhang Jifeng suddenly felt that the man in front of him was so cute. The original resentment also dissipated a little. You are sensible, but since you want to challenge me, then I will let you see my true strength. Don't worry, I won't let you say it too badly. Zhang Lifeng was also proud and looked at Zhu Xiandao arrogantly. Zhu Xiandao looked at Zhang Lifeng as if he were a fool. This guy is so simple-minded and arrogant. Of course, the people around him looked a little ugly when they heard Zhang Lifeng admit that he was the strongest. You have to know that the people present are all children of big families. Everyone is arrogant and no one is convinced by anyone. Now someone said that he is the strongest in front of all of them. How can they accept it in their hearts? For a moment, all the young people looked at Zhang Lifeng with bad faces. At this time, Zhang Lifeng was still complacent, but Zhang Haitian in the audience was embarrassed and looked at Zhu Zhi next to him fiercely. Zhu Zhi looked like he had nothing to do with it and watched the show there. Both of them were old foxes. How could they not know what Zhu Xiandao was doing? Zhang Haitian was also very confident in his son. Although he knew that Zhu Xiandao was just trying to sow discord, as long as his son really had the ability, they would not be dissatisfied. Next is a one-on-one match. Each side can use 6 elves, but they cannot be changed during use. Once one side loses all 6 elves, the match ends. The referee was also announcing the rules on the stage, and the rules were exactly the same as usual. Now, to challengers, do you have any questions? No. Zhu Xiandao and Zhang Lifeng spoke at the same time. The two people's ideas were surprisingly consistent. They just wanted to fight quickly and let the other party know their strength. Both of them were holding back their anger. At this time, the two people were also thinking quickly in their hearts. Although they could use 6 elves, they could only send one out in each battle. In other words, if they were lucky enough to restrain the elves sent out, the battle would be much easier. The two people were completely playing psychological tactics. Now the game officially begins. Please send out your first elves. Capen's slow and loud voice sounded again. Zhu Xiandao and Zhang Libo looked at each other, and Zhang Lifeng took out a luxurious elf ball without hesitation. The male Zhu Xiandao did not hesitate, reached into his backpack, and took out a luxurious Pokeball. Zhu Xiandao thought about it, and decided to use Milotic. The reason why Zhu Xiandao planned to exclude Milotic in the first game was because Milotic was a water-attributed Pokémon. Zhu Xiandao also knew some information about Zhang Lifeng. He took out Milotic. No matter what kind of Pokémon the opponent took out, at least he would not restrain himself. After all, this was the first battle, and Zhu Xiandao also needed to consider the arrangements for the future. In addition, Zhang Yufeng was also a very arrogant person. In the first battle, the opponent would not open a particularly powerful Pokémon. Zhu Xiandao could guess that the opponent would take out the most beautiful flame horse in his hand. After all, this was a battle between 6 Pokémons. No matter which Pokémon was taken out, the first one to appear would be eliminated anyway. In this case, it would be better to take out a high value one. At least it would allow other people to appreciate it and make a good start. As expected by Zhu Xiandao, Zanglife did take out the Flame Horse. Flame Horse, level 41. Zhu Xiandao was even more delighted. Flame Horse is a fire attributed Pokémon, and his own Milotic just happened to be of water attribute, so it could be said that it could restrain it. However, when Flame Horse appeared, the audience was heard to scream again and again. The appearance of the flaming horse was too tempting. However, because they were all children of big families, they were all worldly wise and naturally would not make a fool of themselves. There were also many people fighting too Milotic. Milotic was a Pokémon that ranked very high in all operations, and at this time, many people were looking at Zhu Xiandao with shining eyes. They also felt that Zhu Xiandao was really lucky to have encountered a Milotic that had evolved successfully. After all, there was no method for Milotic in the world. In their opinion, Zhu Xiandao must have been lucky to catch Milotic. Zanglife was a little envious when he saw the Venus summoned by Zhu Xiandao. He originally thought that the Flame Horse he brought out in the first game was definitely one of the best, but once he met the top-notch existence like Venus, he was immediately suppressed. At that moment, Zanglife even felt that he was outclassed. Although it was only a crushing appearance, this feeling still made Zanglife very unhappy. The game officially begins now. The referee also said expressionlessly, "Min Xiao uses hot water." Zhu Xiandao spoke first. The first to strike is the strongest, and the last to strike will suffer. Moreover, the water attribute can also restrain the fire attribute. As long as he can get the first place, it is clear that the victory of the first battle is already in his grasp. Get out of the way, Zanglife also said with disdain. Although he was somewhat restrained in attributes, his face was also numb. He had an absolute advantage in speed. Moreover, he had 2 years of experience as a trainer. Zhu Xiandao was just a young man who had just graduated and had no experience. It was too easy for him to beat Zhu Xiandao with his combat experience. The speed of the fiery horse was also extremely fast. It disappeared in a flash in an instant. At this moment, a column of steaming water appeared from the ground. The speed of the water column was not even as fast as the running speed of the fiery horse. Chapter 85. You're smart. It looks like an easy win. Zanglife looked at the situation in the field and his mouth curled up slightly. Keep attacking, use the sweep mode. Zhu Xiandao also said lightly. Although the speed of the flame horse is fast, Zhu Xiandao does not believe that the flame horse can still fly to the sky. Finally, the water column suddenly swept in the direction of the flame horse in a sweeping posture. The black flame horse was still running, and his speed was even faster than the speed of the water column. Originally, Zanglife did not take it seriously, but suddenly he found something wrong, because the speed of the water column suddenly increased, and it was just a moment to catch up with the flame horse. The water column easily hit the flame horse and directly pushed the flame horse out. I didn't expect it to hide its strength. Zanglife also frowned slightly. He originally thought that he could win this battle with a very perfect winner and make a good start, but he didn't expect his elf to be attacked. However, seeing that the flame horse did not suffer much damage, Zanglife was relieved. Big character poster. Zanglife ordered immediately. Just as Zanglife finished speaking, the flame horse opened its mouth, and a ball of flame immediately gushed out of its mouth, transforming into a big word in the air and shooting towards Min Xiao. Zhu Xiandao was not in a hurry at all, just watching the big word formed entirely by flames getting closer and closer to his Min Xiao. Min Xiao also stood quietly in place, waiting for Zhu Xiandao's order. Use mirror reflection. Just as the flame was about to get close, Zhu Xiandao also ordered immediately. Then a ray of light suddenly appeared on Min Xiao's body. After the flame touched the light, it bounced back at a faster speed. Zanglife and the flame horse did not react at all, and the flame directly hit the flame horse's body, making a loud explosion. Move close to him at high speed. Zanglife frowned slightly and gave orders quickly. He also suddenly felt that something was wrong. He had been at a disadvantage twice in a row. It seemed that the rookie in front of him was stronger than he thought. He had been attacked twice in a row by the flame horse and was slightly injured, but this little bit of damage did not affect the speed of the flame horse. It was still running at a very fast speed towards Venus, who was standing still, surfing. Zhu Xiandao frowned slightly and then decided to go head to head and planned to use this move to directly get rid of the flame horse. Then he saw the flame ant rushing at the body of Milotic at a very fast speed. Blackberry Nass was directly knocked out, and the next moment, a wave suddenly appeared under the flame horse's feet, and the wave carried the flame horse to the edge of the competition venue. Bang! Another loud noise was heard, and then wave after wave of waves hit the flame horse continuously. After an unknown amount of time, the waves finally stopped, and the flame horse was completely unconscious at this time. Min Xiao wins. Please ask Zhang Lifeng to change Pokémon. The referee's voice sounded again. Zhang Lifeng looked at Zhu Xiandao in shock. He couldn't even believe what was happening. What on earth was going on? They had only fought for 3 rounds from beginning to end, and he had only hit once, but his Flammer horse was already defeated. Zhang Lifeng even felt like he was dreaming. Was he kidding himself? He was a trainer with 2 years of combat experience, but he was defeated so easily by Zhu Xiandao, a novice who had just graduated. Isn't it a little different from what I thought? Isn't it said that Zhang Lifeng is very strong? Yes, even Zhang Lifeng himself admitted that he is the strongest among us. I was a little disdainful before, but now I'm even more disdainful. This is only the first game. Although Min Xiao has the attribute suppression, it is ridiculous that he was killed so easily by a newcomer. With his strength, he dares to call himself a strong man. Even if those trash from my family play, I guess they can last 6 or 7 rounds and won't be killed as soon as they appear on the stage. Moreover, many people in the audience looked at Zhang Lifeng on the command platform with disdain. After all, Zhang Lifeng had said arrogantly before, claiming that he was the first. But now, when they saw Zhang Lifeng fail, everyone felt a great sense of satisfaction. Even many family heads in the audience were shocked by the scene in front of them. After all, they knew more inside information and knew that Zhang Lifeng's strength was definitely not weak, but he was crushed so easily. However, these families also began to wonder whether their information was wrong or the opponent they met when they went to find Li Feng was too strong. But of course, with their current status, some things naturally could not be said in front of so many people. After all, if they really spoke, the face of the Zhang family's head would be lost. At this time, Zhang Haitian was sitting in the audience. His face was even darker. Zhang Lifeng's flame horse is quite powerful. It seems that this first game should be just for fun and not serious. Zhu Gang also said in front of his father Zhu Kun. At this time, Zhu Kun did not say a word and quietly looked at the 2 challengers in front of him. After all, at his level, it is not possible to be disturbed by a few words. He can see things more comprehensively. At this time, Zhang Lifeng's face was even darker. He took back his flame horse and looked at Zhu Xiandao with a more fierce look, as if he was looking at an enemy. Thank you for your mercy, brother Zhang. I know you are letting me win, otherwise I would never have won so easily with my strength. Zhu Xiandao smiled and gave a way out. After all, he still had to use the tactic of flattering and killing. Zhu Xiandao also had to let Zhang Lifeng stand higher so that he could fall harder and harder. You are sensible. I saw that you are a novice, so I was just dealing with you. I don't want you to lose too badly, Zhang Lifeng said bluntly after seeing the way out. Zhu Xiandao looked at Zhang Lifeng speechlessly. He was indeed a simple-minded guy. I really don't know how such a person survived in a big family. He didn't even know that he was being plotted against. He was a fool. Zhu Xiandao suddenly felt that it was too easy to win him by brains. Chapter 86 The Second Battle. The next moment, Zhang Lifeng took out another luxurious Pokeball. After knowing that Zhu Xiandao's Pokémon didn't know the skills of Milotic, Zhang Lifeng also began to make some targeted moves. The powerful monster is level 44. Zhu Xiandao also looked at the humanoid Pokémon with 4 arms in front of him. It's okay. Although it is a fighting type, Milotic can at least consume the opponent's physical strength. Zhu Xiandao even felt that the victory of this battle would definitely be his. Zhu Xiandao didn't expect Milotic to win. as long as he could consume the opponent's physical strength and take out a targeted Pokémon, and so on. The cycle would continue. It's obvious that the outcome is doomed. Of course, Zhu Xiandao would not be careless because of this. He knew that it was a taboo to capsize in the ditch. Self-regeneration. Zhu Xiandao ordered again, intending to let Milotic slightly repair the damage it had suffered before. Zhang Lifeng also frowned slightly. Just now, his flame horse only caused some minor injuries to Milotic. In the blink of an eye, Milotic's injuries recovered immediately, which made Zhang Lifeng even more unhappy. Bodybuilding. Zhang Lifeng ordered immediately. Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zhang Lifeng in confusion. He didn't expect the other party not to attack. Toxic. Appreciating Zhu Xiandao's words, he saw that Milotic slowly opened his mouth, and then a ball of black venom instantly spit out towards the four-armed humanoid elf. Go straight over, lightning fist. Then the elf under Zhang Lifeng rushed directly towards Milotic. As for the oncoming black venom, he didn't even look at it. The venom was directly spit on the body of the powerful monster, and the momentum of the powerful monster actually increased instead of decreasing. Even the fists waving were carrying lightning. Zhu Xiandao also looked at the powerful monster with some surprise. He didn't expect that the opponent's resistance to toxins was quite high, but Zhu Xiandao didn't expect the poison to cause severe damage. Use hot water. Just after Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the lightning fist of the powerful monster hit the body of Milotic. The powerful monster, who had just thrown a punch, was instantly hit by the hot water column that emerged from his feet. Use revenge. Zhang Lifeng spoke quickly. Really? Zhu Xiandao looked at him in surprise. Protect. Just after Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, a beam of light hit the light column on Milotic. Zhu Xiandao also breathed a sigh of relief. He never thought that the opponent would have such a skill as revenge. If he reacted a little slower, it is very likely that he would have lost this game. The protagonist Nan also knew that if he continued to defend like this, he would not get any benefit. After all, the opponent was a fighting elf, and the physical consumption could be said to be negligible. Zhu Xiandao had to take a stronger offensive. Lightning fist. Zhang Lifeng continued. Hold it hard, and then use the water tail to blow it away. Zhu Xiandao spoke again. Having endured a lightning fist before, the male protagonist knew that this punch could not kill his Milotic in 1 second. However, Zhu Xiandao must now distance himself from the powerful monster in front of him. As long as he can distance himself, his chances of winning will increase. If he plays close combat with a fighting monster, Milotic will definitely suffer. Zhu Xiandao will not do such a deal. Milotic's punch hit Milotic directly, and Venus took the punch without showing any pain on her face. Then she saw a stream of water suddenly appear on Milotic's tail, and the water flow quickly gathered and slapped Milotic directly. Milotic was instantly blown away. Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly. As long as he could keep a distance from Milotic, that would be enough. Use the destructive ray. Looking at Milotic, who was blown away and had not yet landed, Zhu Xiandao ordered again. At this time, Zhang Lifeng was completely panicked. You know, his Milotic was still in the air and could not use any skills at all. Hold it hard, Zhang Lifeng said with gritted teeth. Then, a beam of light instantly gathered from the mouth of the mines. The beam of light flew out of the mouth of the mines the moment it appeared. The powerful monster naturally saw the destructive beam of the mines, but at this moment, he had no choice but to bear it. Boom. The destructive beam hit the big sign directly, making a loud bang, and then the powerful monster fell to the ground with a bang. Keep fighting. Zhang Lifeng gritted his teeth and looked at his elf. He never thought that his powerful monster would be injured by Zhu Xiandao in such a short time. Originally, he thought that his big fish monster could be solved with a few cards as soon as it appeared, but now he has not achieved any results, which makes Zhang Lifeng unable to hold back his anger. The powerful monster struggled to stand up from the ground, but the whole person was a little tired. Obviously, the destructive beam just now also caused him to be seriously injured. It's not easy. Zhu Xiandao also muttered in a low voice. Zhu Xiandao originally thought that the destruction ray could end the battle directly, but he never expected that he could struggle to stand up. However, Zhu Xiandao did not take it seriously. It looked like he could not hold on for long. If he attacked a few more times, he would not be able to stand up. Go over and use the lightning fist. Zhang Lifeng spoke again. But Zhang Lifeng frowned as soon as he finished speaking, because the big sign was now trapped in the side effects of the destruction ray. The powerful monster stood stiffly in place. Although he wanted to move, his body was paralyzed. Although there was lightning flashing on his fist, his body stood still. Zhu Xiandao also frowned. Zhu Xiandao was sure that his Milotic was not a fighting elf. If he took another dose of lightning fist, he would definitely be eliminated. Min Xiao, hold on. Zhu Xiandao could only cheer for his elf. However, the Milotic was in a paralyzed state. Although he was aggressive, his strength was reduced a lot. After Milotic held on, although its body slid back for a while, it didn't fall down. Zhu Xiandao was relieved. It wasn't that he didn't want to fight back. This was an elf. It was in a state of continuous attack and lacked energy. It couldn't use other skills in a short period of time. It could only hold on. Fortunately, seeing Milotic didn't fall down, Zhu Xiandao knew he still had a chance to win. Chapter 87, 1 vs. 2. Use hot water. After waiting for a while, Zhu Xiandao spoke again. After hearing the order, Milotic took action immediately after a pause of 1 second. Zhu Xiandao had countless methods in his mind just now, and even wanted to let Venus use self-repair, but facing a fighting elite standing in front of him, using self-repair would make his elves a living target. Anyway, this is only Zhu Xiandao's first elf. If it can cause some damage to the powerful monster in front of him, it will be enough. Thunder Fist. Zhang Lifeng also spoke again. And in the next moment, the skills of the two elves hit each other at the same time, and the Thunder Fist hit Milotic. Similarly, the hot water column summoned by Milotic also hit the powerful monster directly, and the powerful monster was directly blown away, and lay on the ground. Then Milotic was knocked to the ground and the whole person was unconscious. Seeing this, Zhang Lifeng was happy in his heart, and he finally solved it. But the next moment, when Zhang Lifeng turned his head to look at his powerful monster, his face turned black instantly, because his powerful monster fell to the ground at this time, without any reaction, and the powerful monster's face was full of pain. Zhang Lifeng's face changed even more. Originally, his powerful monster would not be both injured, but the poison had been taking effect. When the powerful monster was seriously injured, the effect of the poison appeared instantly. The powerful monster and Milotic have lost their combat effectiveness at the same time. Please continue to replace the elves. The referee's calm voice sounded again. No way, am I not seeing things? Didn't everyone say that Zhang Lifeng was very strong? But he turned out to be so weak. Who would have known that he was challenged by a newcomer and defeated 2 with 1 elf? If this gets out, it would be a shame. Before, I thought Zhang Lifeng saw that Zhu Xiandao was a newcomer, so he deliberately let him win, but now he doesn't let him win like this. It's obviously because he is a bad player. And for a moment, many of the onlookers looked at Zhang Lifeng with a smug look on their faces. For some reason, they even had a feeling that they were the winner. Seeing Zhang Lifeng's dark face, all the challengers were as happy as if they had eaten honey. Didn't you say that you are very strong and the strongest among all of us? As a result, you were defeated by a newcomer and another elf at this level. Even the patriarchs of the major families who were watching the show in the audience were wide-eyed at this time, not daring to look at the scene in front of them confidently. You must know that in the competition between the children of their major families, it is basically 1-for-1. Such a 1-for-2 scene basically only exists between those true geniuses and fools. For a moment, everyone looked at Zhang Lifeng with disdain. Before, they thought that Zhang Lifeng was a master of the Zhang family, but now it seems that their information is definitely wrong. Such a person is not worthy of being called a master. Zhang Haitian in the audience became even darker. Zhang Haitian never thought that his son would be abused like this. Zhu Xiandao took back the unconscious Milotic with a smile on his face. At this time, Zhang Lifeng's face was even darker. He finally understood that Zhu Xiandao was just playing tricks on him from the beginning to the end. From the beginning to the end, Zhu Xiandao was playing a weak role to let him relax his vigilance. The most important thing is that he actually believed it. You were playing tricks on me from the beginning to the end, right? Zhang Lifeng looked at Zhu Xiandao fiercely, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. When did I play tricks on you? I really thought you were just letting you win. After all, everyone said that you were the strongest one, and there were many people who wanted to challenge you. It's just that I was lucky to get the number 1 card. Anyway, sooner or later I will give you the strongest decisive battle, so I thought about fighting you directly, and I can also learn something from Brother Zhang. Zhu Xiandao still said lightly. Looking at Zhu Xiandao's attitude, Zhang Lifen was completely confused at this time. Could it be that everything Zhu Xiandao said was true? I originally thought you were really strong, but now it seems that your level is just so-so. You are a trainer who has graduated for 2 years. I think there is no difference between one and the other. Just when Zhang Lifen was confused, Zhu Xiandao's words were clearly heard by Zhang Lifen, and then Zhang Lifen's face changed drastically. Looking at Zhu Xiandao's contemptuous expression, Zhang Lifen wanted to rush over and give Zhu Xiandao some money. Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly. Since the opponent knew his tactics, he might as well change another one and use the method of provoking him to make him lose his composure. Zhang Lifen is indeed a brainless person who can easily make people angry. This is even more interesting. Zhu Xiandao actually mocked Zhang Lifen in front of so many people. This time, the Sichuan Zhu family has completely offended the Zhang family. The challengers around were also curious about the scene in front of them, and there was even light in their eyes. They were all children of big families, and they like to watch this kind of excitement the most. Anyway, no matter how the two families fight, they can get benefits. This feeling of sitting on the mountain and watching the tigers fight is simply too cool. Zhu Laozhen, can you explain to me what your Zhu family means? Do you want to go to war with our Zhu family? Zhang Haitian looked at Zhu Zhi angrily, with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. At this time, the other major families in the audience were also watching this scene with interest, and they hoped that the two would go to war directly here, which would be much more interesting. How is this possible? There is no grudge between our two families. How could I go to war with your Zhang family? Zhu Zhi said with a confused face. Of course, all this was pretended by him. Anyway, there are frictions between every family. He is now the winner, so why bother about what this weak person thinks? And this is also a matter between their two younger generations. I also want to know what happened between them, but don't worry, if there is really any misunderstanding between them, I will be the first to teach this stinky boy a lesson. Zhu Zhi said even more viciously, as if he was the one who was wronged. If the male lead were here, I would even want to give Zhu an Oscar for Best Actor. His acting was so great. Chapter 88 Another instant kill. The other people in the audience naturally watched Zhu Zhi acting there, and everyone was holding back their laughter. Everyone was a wise man, and you were pretending to be wise and confused. Who are you trying to fool? Wang Haitian's face turned green and red, and he was obviously very angry about Zhu Zhi's confusion, but he couldn't get angry yet. You're dead. Now I'll let you know how big the gap between us is. After Zhang Lifen finished speaking, he came back to his senses and took out a Pokeball and threw it on the field. Zhu Xiandao looked at Zhang Lifen with disdain. This guy was so simple-minded that he became irritable immediately after being mocked. On the other side, the Pokémon flashed by, and then a Steelix appeared in the competition field. Steelix level 49. Zhu Xiandao also looked at Xiaoxi of Zhang Lifen in surprise. You know that this Steelix is Zhang Lifen's trump card Pokémon. I didn't expect this guy to have such a bad temper, but it seems that his trump card is just like that. Zhu Xiandao thought about it and finally took out a Pokeball. Come out, Nidoking. Earthquake. As soon as Zhu Xiandao summoned Nidoking, Zhang Lifen immediately ordered an attack. Guard. Zhu Xiandao also hurriedly ordered, but he didn't expect Zhang Lifen to use a big move right away. In the end, the tail shot by Dagon slammed on the ground, and then the competition venue made a rumbling sound, and the entire competition venue was shaking. A faint light appeared beside Nidoking, standing firmly in place, not affected by the earthquake. Continue to earthquake. Zhang Lifen continued. And Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zhang Lifen speechlessly. Is your move too simple? Hold on and use the power of the earth. Seeing that Nidoking's guarding light was getting dimmer and dimmer, Zhu Xiandao immediately decided to fight hard. The next moment, the light on Nidoking disappeared immediately, and Nidoking also showed a trace of pain. Obviously, Nidoking was not feeling well in the earthquake. Then, Nidoking slowly raised his leg and stepped on the ground horizontally. Instantly, a crack appeared on the ground, and the crack instantly spread to the body of Steelix. Then, under the crack, an invisible energy suddenly appeared, spreading rapidly from bottom to top. Roar. And that force directly hit the body of Steelix, causing Steelix, who was performing the earthquake, to stop instantly. Zhu Xiandao knew that, although the defense mentioned by Dagon was relatively high, the blood volume was relatively low. Originally, Zhu Xiandao thought that Steelix would be killed instantly by his Nidoking. After all, Nidoking had a lot of treasures on his body. Being directly hit by the power of the earth, he did not die. It seems that Steelix is not simple. Spray flames. Zhu Xiandao did not hesitate at all. Dig a hole. Zhang Lifen gritted his teeth and said. The next moment, Steelix began to rotate rapidly and instantly drilled a hole in the ground that was just big enough for Steelix to drill into. Just as Steelix drilled in, it was immediately met with flames whizzing past and brushed past Steelix. Not easy, Nidoking, run. Zhu Xiandao said again. After all, he didn't know where Steelix would appear from in the next second. So it was absolutely impossible for the Python to complete the sneak attack. Then he saw Nidoking running quickly on the competition field. Because Zhang Lifen looked at Zhu Xiandao with gritted teeth. Although his Python could burrow into the ground, its speed after burrowing into the ground would be quite slow. Facing Nidoking running in the field, it was impossible to sneak attack without thinking. And it was impossible to consume Nidoking's physical strength. After all, Nidoking himself was a fighting elf, and the physical strength of this elf would never be lost because of running. The Python attacked directly. Since the sneak attack could not succeed, it would attack directly. Anyway, Nidoking didn't know where it would come from. There was still a chance. Zhu Xiandao also squinted his eyes and looked at the competition field seriously. Zhu Xiandao had to make a quick judgment based on the situation that would appear later. So Zhu Xiandao could not miss any details and had to stare at any possibility on the field. The next moment, a crack appeared less than a meter in front of Nidoking. Nidoking jumped back immediately. As soon as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the Python broke out of the ground in an instant. Although Nidoking's reaction speed was quite fast, and he had already started to jump back, he was still scraped by the Python and was instantly ejected. Fortunately, he dodged in time. Although he was slightly injured, Nidoking was not knocked down. Spray flames. At the moment of being repelled, Zhu Xiandao also gave an order immediately. Then he saw Nidoking, who was blown into the sky, opened his mouth and a flame immediately sprayed out, hitting the Python's head directly. Zhang Lifen was even more surprised. You know, the Python had just launched an attack and was counter-attacked. This speed was too fast. Then a flame gushed out instantly and hit the Python's head. After the flames, white smoke was coming out of the Python's head. The Python's body shook slightly twice, and then it fell to the ground with a snap. The Python has lost its fighting power. Please ask Zhang Lifen to change the elf. The referee spoke again. Zhang Lifen's face was even more pale at this time. You know, the Python is his trump card. He never thought that the most powerful elf in his hand would lose in a one-on-one situation. Oh my god, what's going on in this battle? It's so one-sided. Don't people say that Zhang Lifen is very strong? But isn't this level not good enough? Could it be that the guy named Zhu Xiandao is too strong? But that shouldn't be the case. I think his command is very good, but in comparison, Zhang Lifen's command ability is just like a novice. That's right, and Zhu Xiandao is only 15 years old and just graduated from school, while Zhang Lifen has 2 years of experience as an adventurer. What you mean is that Zhang Lifen is just a trash in name only? If Zhu Xiandao is given another 2 years, wouldn't Zhu Xiandao be able to easily kill Zhang Lifen in seconds? For a moment, the people around him were disgusted with him. After 3 battles, how could they not see how big the gap in strength between the two was? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89. Too much command ability. That's right, Zhu Xiandao looks like a young boy, but Zhang Jifeng is the eldest son of the Zhang family. Whether it's resources or experience, he should be better than Zhu Xiandao in every aspect. Zhang Haiying was also leading the rhythm. Then the people around him became more and more convinced that it was not Zhu Xiandao who was too strong, but Zhang Lifeng who was too weak. Moreover, everyone was an adventurer and had the ability to command. In their opinion, even if they were in Zhang Yufeng's position and used the same elves, they could confidently say that their command ability was better than Zhang Lifeng's. For a while, most people all recognized the fact that Zhang Lifeng was a waste. At this time, the patriarchs of the big families in the audience also looked at Zhu Xiandao with some surprise. Their experience were extremely sophisticated, and they could naturally see that the outline snake summoned by Zhang Yufeng was obviously much stronger than Nidoking in all attributes. Under the same command ability, everyone can be sure that the winning elf will definitely be the Python. But no one expected that the Python would be defeated so easily. At this time, everyone's eyes looking at Zhang Lifeng completely changed. This is simply a rookie who can't command. Zhang Lifeng was standing on the command platform at this time, his hands clenched tightly, and veins popped out. He still didn't know how he lost. Zhang Lifeng even knew that his Python was obviously stronger than Nidoking in all aspects. But why was he defeated so easily, and even felt that he had no ability to resist at all? What Zhang Lifeng didn't know was that Zhu Xiandao had a hidden plugin, that is, the system. The system can bring the full potential of the elves to the extreme, and this hidden potential is still hidden, and everyone can't see it at all. In everyone's eyes, they only know that the innate ability of the Python is stronger than Nidoking, but they don't know that Nidoking has been transformed by the system, and his talent is not even weaker than that of the Python. Please ask Zhang Lifeng to change the elves. Capen waited for a while, and found that Zhang Lifeng was still in a daze, and continued to speak. Zhang Lifeng, who heard the voice, also came back to his senses. He also waved his hand with a gloomy face, and took the unconscious Python back into the Pokeball. At this time, Zhao Lifeng was completely panicked. Even his most powerful trump card was no match in a one-on-one situation. It was hard for Zhang Yufeng to imagine how he should win next. And no matter how you look at it, Zhu Xiandao only took out 2 Pokémons, and he has now lost 3. The most important thing is that he still doesn't know what Zhu Xiandao's most powerful Pokémon is. When Zhu Xiandao didn't take out his trump card, his biggest trump card had been solved. For a moment, Zhang Lifeng couldn't even think of his chance to turn the tables. The more he thought about Zhang Lifeng's mentality, the more serious it collapsed. Zhu Xiandao glanced at Zhang Lifeng, and that glance was as if he saw through Zhang Lifeng. In Zhu Xiandao's eyes, Zhang Lifeng was now like a primary school student, and Nanshiju could see clearly what he was thinking. Please hurry up, the battle is already halfway through, and there are still many people waiting to fight. Zhu Xiandao said with disdain, as if he could easily defeat Zhang Lifeng at any time. At this time, Zhang Lifeng was even more furious, but looking at Zhu Xiandao's arrogant and complacent appearance, he really had no way to deal with it. Come out, Soundwave Dragon. Then a creature that looked like a bat appeared in the competition field. Zhu Xiandao was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that the elves on Zhang Lifeng were all good. To be honest, Zhu Xiandao was also a little interested. The moment the bat just appeared, Zhang Lifeng took the lead and spoke, trying to seize the initiative. Freezing Ray. Zhu Xiandao said nonchalantly. Zhu Xiandao's words made Zhang Lifeng tremble all over. You know, the ice cave skills are the best for his big bat, which is an absolute restraint. In the next moment, you play one more Qn, and then a ray of light instantly shoots out, and the air blades in the air collide with each other, and the air blades are directly shattered. And that beam of light was even faster, and it went straight to the bats in the competition field without slowing down. This is impossible. Zhang Lifeng's eyes widened. Could it be that his elves were really so weak? You know, the same skills attacked Zhang Jifeng, and even felt that his skills were pitifully weak, and he couldn't even block the opponent. Why did Nidoking have such a terrifying power? Now he finally knew why his Python lost so easily. The Nidoking in front of him was definitely not simple. Maybe he had some magical treasure that enhanced the power of his skills. Zhang Lifen was not a fool. He naturally knew that there were many treasures in this world that could make the combat power of elves soar. Could it be that Zhu Xiandao really had such a treasure, and it was an extremely powerful amplification treasure? Dodge. Zhang Lifen said hurriedly. As soon as Zhang Lifen finished speaking, the bat whistled its wings and burst out at an extremely fast speed, leaving a residue image in the air and passing by the light. After seeing his bat dodge the beam, Zhang Lifen was relieved. If it hit Zhang Lifen, it was certain that his bat would not be able to withstand 2 hits. Freezing beam. Zhu Xiandao spoke again. It was just one move, but it made the opponent flustered. Zhu Xiandao felt that he could easily win this game. At this time, whether it was the audience in the stands or the contestants near the competition stage, they actually understood that it was not Zhu Xiandao who was too strong, but Zhang Lifen was too weak. Blow the wind. Zhang Lifen shouted anxiously. He absolutely could not let Nidoking stay on the field. If Zhu Xiandao really had a treasure that enhanced his skills, it was not surprising that, if it was really hit, his bat might even be killed instantly. The effect of blowing the wind was also very good. A gust of wind suddenly blew over Nidoking standing in the competition field, and he was blown out of the competition field in an instant. Finally, it turned into a beam of light and returned to the Pokeball. At this time, Zhang Lifen breathed a sigh of relief and solved the problem of Nidoking. Then, the squirrel at Zhu Xiandao's feet suddenly appeared in the competition venue. Chapter 90 Perfect Tactics. At this time, the squirrel was looking at the big bat in the competition field with a confused look on his face. He seemed to be thinking about why he was here. This squirrel is so cute and beautiful. I really want to turn him into my elf. I wonder if Zhu Xiandao will sell it to me. Don't think about this elf. I want it. Don't fight with me for it, otherwise you will be against me. At this time, the girls in the audience saw the squirrel with their eyes shining. At this time, Zhang Lifen was also relieved. After all, in Zhang Yufeng's eyes, this squirrel was just a pet that he believed in. He could finally win another game. When he thought of this, Zhang Lifen suddenly felt that he still had hope of winning. Zhu Xiandao was also a little different because he didn't say anything, and the squirrel entered the venue by himself. However, Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zhang Yufeng's expression and laughed. He really underestimated his elf. Did he really think that your bat could beat a squirrel? Rock blast. As soon as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the squirrel stamped its feet, and 5 rocks popped out from the ground. The rocks instantly turned into bullets and flew towards the bats in the sky. Dodge. Zhang Lifen said immediately. The bats were really fast. With just a flash, they left a shadow in the air again, dodging 5 stones that were like bullets. Air slash. Zhang Lifen's words rang out again. Dodge. As soon as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the squirrel's feet moved slightly. It was still in the competition venue, leaving a very fast speed, and easily dodged several air slashes in the air. In the next few rounds, both sides used skills while dodging. Since both sides were very fast, it can be said that they basically dodged 100%. Zhang Lifen also frowned slightly. He didn't expect that this cute little squirrel had such a terrible speed. According to this situation, the only thing that can be competed is endurance. Zhu Xiandao was also thinking about what skills he needed to use. After all, because he had the system, his elves had more skills than others. Use temptation. As soon as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, even the squirrel was a little surprised. However, after a second of surprise, he directly posed in a more lovely and charming posture, casting a seductive look at the bat in the sky. Wow, I didn't expect this squirrel to be able to seduce. No, I have been completely seduced by this squirrel. No matter what the price, I must get this squirrel. If he dares not to sell it to me, our Huang family will go to war with the Zhu family. Listening to the screams of the group of women on the competition stage, even Zhu Zhi's mouth twitched slightly. Although Zhu Zhi also knew that the male protagonist thought this squirrel was indeed cute, it was not necessary to let the 2 big families go to war because of this squirrel. Still in the competition venue, the big bat was surprised for a second after seeing the squirrel's actions and then showed an embarrassed look. Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly. Sure enough, temptation is basically irresistible to male elves. Of course, Zhu Xiandao was also gambling in doing this. After all, Zhu Xiandao didn't know whether the big bat in front of him was male or female. However, Zhu Xiandao knew that the temptation was successful and he would be much more relaxed next time. Keep tempting. At this time, Zhang Lifen was also looking at his elf, and his eyes full of love also frowned slightly. Dodge. After Zhu Xiandao used temptation 3 times in a row, he also saw that the bat's fighting spirit had obviously decreased a lot. Go over and get close to him. Following Zhu Xiandao's words, the squirrel jumped towards the big bat in the sky. Zhang Lifen frowned slightly as he looked at the squirrel getting closer and closer. Although he didn't know what Zhu Xiandao's purpose was, he knew it would definitely explode. Following Zhang Junfeng's words, the bat waved again, and its wings intercepted the air blade, and it instantly appeared and shot towards the squirrel. But suddenly Zhang Lifen found something wrong. The air blade shot by his bat was so weak that it could even be said that it would not cause any damage even if it hit. Zhang Lifen stared at his bat with wide eyes, and then he suddenly found that his bat seemed a little abnormal, especially when he saw his flushed face. Zhang Lifen instantly knew that his bat was in heat. Damn it, I was careless. Zhang Lifen clenched his fists and said viciously. Looking at his weakened elf, Zhang Jifen was helpless. Used dragon claws to attack. Since the long-range skills cannot be used, he can only use melee attacks. The protagonist of the humanity smiled slightly. You know, his squirrel is the strongest in melee combat, and Zhang Lifen took the initiative to invite him to join the station, which is simply sending him to death. After hearing Zhang Lifen's order, the bat in the sky looked at the squirrel with red eyes, as if looking at a peerless beauty, and pounced on the squirrel at a faster speed, wanting to eat the squirrel. Guard. As Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, a faint protective film suddenly appeared on the squirrel. The bat hit the invisible wall with a bang, but it was still relentless and kept hitting forward. The male Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched slightly. You know, with the speed of the bat just now, it hit the guardian light. Anyway, the force was definitely not low. But the bat seemed to feel no pain at all, and still pounced on the squirrel with a bright eye. How terrifying is this? Can you restrain yourself a little? It's simply a starving ghost reincarnated. Even Zhang Lifen frowned at the scene in front of him. His elf had completely lost control. If it continued like this, he would lose without fighting. At this time, many challengers under the competition stage shook their heads at the scene in front of them. Zhang Lifen's command level is too poor, right? How can everyone not see that the elves summoned by Zhang Yufeng are even more powerful than Zhu Xiandao's? But under Zhang Lifen's stupid command, the elves fell into a desperate situation. They now completely understood that Zhang Lifen was not as strong as he said during the hydrogen explosion. It was probably a fog created by the Zhang family. But they were not fools. As long as they watched the previous battle, they would naturally know who was stronger and who was weaker. Chapter 91. Fighting with you is too boring. Jump on his back. As Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the squirrel also exerted a little force with his feet and jumped onto the bat's back. This time it was the bat who was enjoying it even more and even let the squirrel ride on him without any resistance. Throw him off. Zhang Lifen's face was even more gloomy. Hold him tightly and then use continuous rock blasting. Zhu Xiandao said bluntly. In this case, the bat's speed can be said to be greatly restricted. As long as his attack keeps up, then you don't need to think about what the consequences will be. Then I saw a strange scene. The squirrel rode on the bat's back and grabbed the bat's neck tightly. At this time, stones appeared on the ground one after another. Although the bat was also resisting at this time, looking at the expression on his face, it seemed that he had no intention of throwing the squirrel off at all, and even had a feeling of a chess squirrel flying in the sky. The bat ignored the stones on the ground, and Mr. Jin threw stones one after another, hitting the bat continuously. In just a short moment, I don't know how many stones hit the bat. In just a moment, the bat fell from the sky to the ground and fainted. After fainting, his face was still full of happiness. At this time, the squirrel also jumped down from the bat, raised his hands and chest with a victorious attitude. At this time, the people around were too lazy to evaluate Zhang Lifen's command ability. In their eyes, He was just a fledgling trainer. Well done. Zhu Xiandao also praised. After hearing this, the squirrel's face was more proud. Please ask Zhang Lifeng to change the Pokémon. The referee continued to speak after he came to his senses. The financial judge even felt that this battle was completely suspenseful. He could even predict that Zhu Xiandao would definitely be the winner of this battle. Of course, according to the rules, the financial judge still had to follow a process honestly. This squirrel is so cute and so strong. I must get this squirrel no matter what. To be honest, I think this squirrel is very cute, but its combat power is still a little inferior. The main reason is that Zhang Lifeng's command ability is really poor. At this time, many viewers looked at Zhang Yufeng with contempt. Of course, the reason why they had such an idea was that they were led astray by Sun Haiying. Another reason was Zhang Lifeng's command ability. They really saw it in their eyes. They really couldn't praise such a command ability. This kid from the Zhu family is quite powerful and has good command ability. That's right, Zhu Laozhen, your Zhu family has produced another hero now. The leaders of the major families in the audience also complimented Zhu Zhi. How could they not see that Zhang Lifeng's command ability was actually good, but he was facing a terrifying existence like Zhu Xiandao. They were all experienced people, so they knew very well that among the new conductors they had seen, it seemed that no one could compare to Zhu Xiandao. No, that kid just graduated. I just took him out to see the world. Zhu Zhi said modestly, but he was very happy in his heart. At this time, Wang Haitian looked at Zhu Zhi with gritted teeth. He really wanted to rush up and slap him twice. But Zhang Haitian knew very well that his son was not good enough, and he had no way to do it. He could only endure this humiliation. On the other hand, he was also thinking about where this kid came from. After all, the major families knew each other's background. Even if it was a waste in the family, they knew each other. But Zhu Xiandao was like jumping out of a crack in the stone, and he made a big splash as soon as he jumped out. At this time, Zhang Yufeng, who was standing on the command platform, also took out his next Pokeball in confusion. He was completely stunned at this time. He still didn't understand how he lost. He was beaten like this by a newcomer who just graduated. Hurry up and finish it. I really don't want to play anymore. It's too boring to fight with you. Zhu Xiandao looked impatient and continued to provoke Zhang Lifeng. Damn it. Zhang Lifeng was almost furious when he saw Zhu Xiandao gritting his teeth. You know, the game is not over yet, but this guy has unilaterally announced that the victory is over. You know, you still have a chance to turn the tables. Come out, Flame King. As Zhang Jifen finished speaking, a fat pig with flames all over his body appeared in the arena. I didn't expect that he finally showed his real trump card. Zhu Xiandao was also a little surprised. Before, Zhu Xiandao really thought that the big python was Zhang Lifeng's strongest trump card. But now looking at the Flame King in front of him, who has reached level 50, Zhu Xiandao realized that Zhang Lifeng had something hidden. And Zhu Xiandao was also a little surprised. He originally thought that Zhang Lifeng would save his strongest thing for the last, but he didn't expect that he couldn't hold it back so soon. However, Zhu Xiandao also had a look of disdain in his eyes. After all, Zhang Lifeng's current level was not much different from Zhu Feng 2 months ago. After 2 months of training, Zhu Xiandao had already become many times stronger than before. If he met Zhu Feng 2 months ago, Zhu Xiandao could easily win. Flame King, just rush up and hit him. Zhang Lifeng said quickly. With the current size of Flame King, he could deal considerable damage to a small squirrel if he hit it. Zhang Lifeng really couldn't accept that he had lost so badly. With this speed, Zhu Xiandao shook his head. Although the huge body of Flame King was indeed terrifying, under this terrifying body, the speed was just like a turtle crawling. Dodge. Zhu Xiandao said slowly. After seeing the speed of Flame King, the black squirrel also curled up slightly, revealing a disdainful smile. Then he jumped lightly and easily dodged, not even using all his strength, giving people the feeling that it was so easy. Trampled. Seeing the careless look of the squirrel, Zhang Lifeng sighed secretly. The opportunity finally came. Then the Flame King suddenly raised his head and stepped on the squirrel. Seeing the huge size, even the pig's hoof was bigger than the squirrel. If he stepped on it, it was conceivable that the squirrel would be crushed directly. Chapter 92 Attribute Crushing. Turn back quickly, Zhu Xiandao said calmly. When the Flame King's tail was about to hit the squirrel's tail swept quickly. Then, with the help of this force, the squirrel jumped away. The Flame King was too slow. He could only watch the squirrel escape, and his trampling could not be undone. He stomped on the ground fiercely. Although this attack did not hit the squirrel directly, the effect of the trampling was still directly emitted. The place where the big wild boar stepped on was instantly shattered. A big pit was stepped on the ground, and not only that, the big pit on the ground, but also cracks began to spread around one after another, spreading to the surroundings. The squirrel, who had just landed, also kicked his feet and rushed towards the Flame King quickly, but just after hitting the Flame King, it turned into a white light and disappeared, returning to Zhu Xiandao's Pokeball. Zhu Xiandao was not surprised at all. After all, it was a disadvantage for a squirrel to fight against the Flame King with such a high defense and thick blood. Pidgeot, come out. As Zhu Xiandao said this, a white light flashed across the field, and then a huge Pidgeot appeared on the battlefield. Zhu Xiandao also planned to let all the other 5 elves, except Black and White, participate in the battle. As for why Black and White were not allowed to fight, it was obvious. After all, Black and White were not at the same level as them among the challengers. Zhu Xiandao also knew that, if he used elves with too strong touch, everyone would think that he was strong. Zhu Xiandao now wanted to use these weaker elves to easily defeat Zhang Lifen with his super high command ability. Zhu Xiandao would never give others any excuse to refute. He wanted to let everyone know that Zhang Lifen was a complete idiot. In addition to Black and White, Zhu Xiandao's other 5 elves were not much different from Zhang Lifen's elves. If Zhu Xiandao defeated all 6 elves of Zhang Lifen with 5 elves at that time, then everyone will think that Zhang Lifen is a waste with no command ability. This is completely Zhang Lifen's own incompetence. At this time, Zhang Lifen gritted his teeth and looked at Zhu Xiandao. Just because of what he said at the beginning, he was completely at a disadvantage at this time. Zhu Xiandao could summon the elves to restrain him at will. The most important thing is that he has no way at all. Okay, hurry up, this time I'll let you attack first. Zhu Xiandao took a look, and Zhang Lifen, who was angry, said lightly, as if I don't want to bully you. The people around him shook their heads after seeing Zhu Xiandao's attitude. Zhu Xiandao was indeed a little too arrogant, but they put themselves in Zhu Xiandao's shoes. If they were in Zhu Xiandao's shoes, they would probably do the same thing. After all, in the eyes of all of them, Zhang Lifen's command ability was really too poor. At this time, everyone had completely thrown the strawback hat on Zhang Lifen's head. I think I already know the outcome of this battle. There is absolutely no hope for Zhang Lifen to win. Yeah, with his combat command ability, I feel that my 3 elves can beat his 6. I really don't know why those big families are saying that Zhang Lifen is very strong. Do they think we are all fools? Damn, I think I'm really a fool. I really thought Zhang Yufeng was very strong before, but now if anyone tells me that Zhang Lifen is strong, I will definitely slap him. The people around him also shook their heads. Zhang Haiying was also watching the scene in front of him secretly and smiled slightly. Although he was also leading the rhythm, the biggest credit was Zhu Xiandao. Zhang Haiying was also curious about Zhu Xiandao. Originally, in Zhang Haiying's cognition, even if Zhu Xiandao could beat Zhang Lifen, it would not be so easy. But the ability shown by Zhu Xiandao in all aspects was too terrifying. It was completely at the level of crushing, and even gave people an illusion that Zhang Lifen was too weak. But Sun Haiying knew better than anyone that Zhang Lifen's ability was not low, or Zhu Xiandao was just too abnormal. Do you think you're going to win? Zhang Lifen gritted his teeth and looked at Zhu Xiandao, his fists clenched tightly, wishing he could punch Zhu Xiandao's face and smash it to pieces. Rock blockade! Zhang Lifen shouted with a corrupt breath. The next moment, the Flame King, with 2 pig trotters gently on the ground, followed by the gravel on the ground, suddenly rose from the ground and flew towards the Pidgeot. Move at high speed to avoid it, Zhu Xiandao said slowly. Then he saw the bee bird in the sky, flapping its wings, and then quickly turned into a beam of light and disappeared. The speed was so fast that it was like teleportation. Damn, how can it be so fast? Zhang Lifeng also gritted his teeth and looked at the Pidgeot in the sky. Originally, his Flame King had thick skin and flesh, but for the Pidgeot flying in the sky, he didn't have many moves. But now the Pidgeot has an extremely terrifying speed. If he cannot limit the speed of the Pidgeot, then he will be beaten unilaterally. Zhang Lifeng can even see that his thick-skinned Flame King will be beaten up, and he will have no power to resist. Rock blockade. Zhang Lifeng ordered again. His Flame King only has this one move to block the speed of the Pidgeot. Although the move just now did not have any effect, as long as it can succeed once, it is enough. And then the Flame King in the competition field stomped his feet again, and stones rose from the ground again, and shot towards the Pidgeot in the sky. Airblade. Zhu Xiandao said lightly. The next moment, the Pidgeot was seen to be refreshing its teeth. A gust of wind blew in the sky, and one after another air blades were formed in an instant, cutting all the oncoming stones into pieces. Okay, I will start to fight back next. Feather blade. As soon as a student Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the Pidgeot in the sky suddenly appeared above the Flame King. Then his wings shook slightly, and pieces of energy appeared, forming feather-like patterns. Like hidden weapons, countless feathers fell from the sky, and were densely distributed around the Flame King. Chapter 93 Mental Breakdown. Flame Jet. Zhang Lifeng spoke again. Then the Flame King raised his head, and a flame instantly gushed out from his body, like a volcanic eruption, straight towards the Pidgeot in the sky. Move at high speed. Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, and the Pidgeot disappeared in the sky above the Flame King like a holy cloth. Divine Bird. Just as Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, the Pidgeot in the sky suddenly emitted a sacred light, and that light made everyone around feel so dazzling. Then the dazzling light surrounded the Pidgeot, and it quickly rushed straight towards the direction of the Flame King. The terrifying speed was like a flash of light, flashing by. What? Zhang Jifeng was also shocked. He just wanted to tell his Flame King to dodge, but the Pidgeot was too fast. He heard a bang before he opened his mouth. Then his Flame King, like being hit by a truck, flew backwards at a very fast speed and slammed on the wall of the competition venue. Then the wall was covered with cracks, and the Flame King was injured in it. It looked like it was grown together with the wall of the competition venue. Flame King. Zhang Lifeng shouted, with a hint of luck in his heart. After all, his Flame King horse was thick-skinned, and should not be killed instantly. Hearing the words of his master, the Flame King slowly opened his eyes, his face full of pain, struggling to crawl out of the wall. It's worthy of being the Flame King. It's true that he is not dead after the right melon splitting. Zhu Xiandao was also a little surprised. If it were any other elves, they would definitely be killed instantly under this terrifying blow. But Zhu Xiandao didn't take it to heart. Although the Flame King was still alive, he looked seriously injured and had no fighting power in a short time. Destroy the light. Zhu Xiandao opened his mouth again and wanted to finish off the Flame King directly. Flame King, run away. Zhang Lifeng roared even more heartbreakingly. Then, the Flame King struggled to escape from the wall, as if he had broken through his potential. Although his speed was much slower than before, he still took action. At this time, the Nosebud also opened its mouth, and the destructive ray was aimed at the Flame King who had just landed. With a bang, the ray flashed out. Run quickly. Zhang Lifeng shouted again, his eyes full of anxiety. Finally, the Flame King struggled to stand up from the ground. Although he was about to fall, he still ran to the side. At this time, the destructive ray just passed by the Flame King. Seeing this scene, Li Feng was relieved. It was just a little bit away. If the Flame King was hit, he would definitely be killed instantly. Shoot over. Zhu Xiandao's voice sounded again, and Zhu Xiandao's words made Zhang Yufeng's eyes condense. You are not kidding me. Can the destructive ray be used like this? Finally, the destructive ray was seen sweeping in the direction of the Flame King's escape. Seeing this scene, Zhang Lifeng almost collapsed. Run away quickly. As Zhang Lifeng's words fell, the Flame King dragged himself and ran desperately with his weak body. However, the Flame King, who was originally very slow, was seriously injured. His speed was so slow that it even made people feel that he was waiting to die. Then the speed of the destructive light swept over in just a blink of an eye and easily caught up with the Flame King. This Pittsburgh is not simple either. The skill is indeed quite strong. It is indeed strong, but the Flame King is too weak. He didn't even touch him from beginning to end. You are wrong. This can't be blamed on the Flame King. It's all because of the commander. You make sense. After all, no matter what kind of elf it is, the most important thing is the commander's command ability. Just as the people around were discussing, a loud explosion suddenly sounded. The Flame King, who was originally running, was directly hit by the destructive light, and black smoke filled the competition field. At this time, Flame King was in the smoke, and the crowd did not see Flame King escape from the famous saying. They even guessed the result. After waiting for a few seconds, the smoke dissipated, and they saw Flame King lying on the ground motionless with his eyes closed. Please ask contestant Zhang Lifeng to change the Pokémon. As the referee finished speaking, the audience was in turmoil again. I can see, now that it is not, that Zhu Xiandao is so strong, nor that Zhu Xiandao's Pokémon is too strong. It is completely the difference in command ability. Although Zhu Xiandao's command is very good, Zhang Lifeng's command is too poor in comparison. I feel that I was better than him when I was 10 years old. Those Pokémons are suffering too much following such a pig commander. And for a while, everyone also agreed that Zhang Lifeng was simply a chicken. But I'm very interested in this new trainer now. His command ability is a bit too strong. The voice was not loud, but most of the people present heard it. The speaker was not someone else, but Wang Lei, the son of Wang Zero, who was very close to the Zhu family in Sichuan. Anyway, the relationship between the two families is very good, and they naturally have to stand on Zhu Xiandao's side. Now is the time to help Zhu Xiandao become famous. It's true what you said. This Zhu Xiandao's command ability seems to be extraordinary. This is also a very talented newcomer. He will definitely become more outstanding after a few years. The people around him nodded one after another, agreeing with Wang Lei's words. At this time, Zhang Yufeng also took out another Pokeball weekly, and the whole person was stupid. At this time, Zhang Lifeng even felt that he had no chance of turning the tables. Zhu Xiandao also sighed. It seems that the other party has planned to give up. In this case, then end the battle as soon as possible. Gem Starfish level 44. At this time, everyone also found that Zhang Lifeng had completely lost his previous attitude. At this time, the whole person was a little sluggish, and everyone could see that Zhang Lifeng was completely in a mode of failure. Although such a result had long been expected by them, they did not expect Zhang Lifeng's mentality to be so bad. Chapter 94. Is he his son? Then, when the gem starfish appeared, Zhang Lifeng did not give any instructions, and just stood there blankly. He seemed to be thinking about why he lost. Could it be because he was a fool? After all, he was a descendant of a big family, and had seen many masters, but he had never suffered such a miserable situation. How could Zhang Lifeng not know? The elves summoned by Zhu Xiandao were not stronger than him in attributes, and were even weaker. But because of this, Zhang Lifeng suffered a greater blow. He lost the game when the elves had a complete advantage, and he said it so thoroughly. What else could he be but a fool? It seems that he has completely given up. Zhu Xiandao sighed helplessly. This was too boring. He originally thought that Zhang Lifeng could hold on until the end of the game, but he didn't expect that Zhang Lifeng had completely collapsed when the game was only halfway through. Divine Bird. Since Zhang Lifeng had given up the game, it would end directly. At this time, the Pidgeot Bad once again emitted a dazzling light, and the next moment it crashed directly into the gem starfish at a terrifying speed. The entire starfish was also in a daze, because he had never expected that his conductor had not given any orders since he had appeared on the stage. In the end, there was a loud bang, and the starfish was directly knocked into the wall, and the whole person fell into a coma. Zhu Xiandao wins. Capon glanced at the final result and announced it calmly. Congratulations to the host for completing the task and obtaining 3 draws for the evolution stone. At this moment, the system's prompt sounded. What followed was warm applause from the audience. Although they had already expected this result, they didn't know why they felt relieved. After all, Zhang Yifeng was too arrogant, so arrogant that they found it difficult to accept. But now seeing this arrogant person being viciously trampled under someone's feet, they felt so relieved. From now on, if this guy dared to continue to be rampant in front of him, he could use this black history to blacken him. After the game, Zhu Xiandao also took back the elf and looked at Zhang Lifen, who was still in a daze. He was obviously hit and mentally collapsed. Zhu Xiandao didn't even have the idea of mocking him. He turned around and left, walking towards the podium. Seeing that Zhu Xiandao really beat Zhang Lifen and won so easily, everyone looked at Zhu Xiandao with admiration. This is a man with a promising future, and Zhu Zhi, who was in the audience, was almost laughing. At this time, Wang Haitian looked at his son with a gloomy face. He knew that his son had a mental breakdown. Originally, his reputation was ruined, which was a trivial matter in itself. After all, who has not lost face in life? But if it is because of such a trivial matter that one's mental breakdown and never recovers from it, that is the greatest harm. I don't know if Zhang Lifen can regain his confidence after this incident. If he can't regain his confidence, Zhang Lifen will become a complete waste from now on. After all, people without confidence in this world are real waste. At this time, Zhu Kun, the head of the Xianshan Zhu family, squinted his eyes and looked at Zhu Xiandao thinking there. During this period of time, he also specially asked someone to investigate the information about Zhu Xiandao. It can be said that in the past 15 years, the Zhu family has never had this person. No matter which branch of the family, they had never heard of him. Even the spies that he had arranged in the Zhu family had never heard of this person. Then he suddenly thought of something, and then his face showed a deeper look of shock and anger. He even turned his head with a hint of excitement and said loudly in front of everyone, Zhu Zhi, tell me clearly, is this Zhu Xiandao the son of Zhu Xianlui? At this time, Zhu Kun gritted his teeth and said that it was because of Zhu Xianlui that their family suffered a lot of infamy. All the families knew about Zhu Xianlui's life and death, but because they did not find the body, they had also speculated whether Zhu Xianlui had quietly withdrawn from the Zhu family. After all, everyone had some understanding of Zhu Xianlui. Zhu Xianlui had no intention of becoming the head of the Zhu family. Everyone had thought of this speculation. But for so many years, no one had found any information about Zhu Xianlui, and Zhu Xianlui had never returned to the Zhu family. This idea was also forgotten by everyone, but at this moment, the appearance of Zhu Xiandao suddenly made Zhu Kun realize that things were definitely not that simple. Zhu Kun's words immediately made the crowd in the audience, which was originally a bit lively, suddenly become silent. Everyone couldn't help but think of that powerful figure in their minds. You know, Zhu Xianlui was extremely terrifying back then. Just one person was already overwhelming everyone. Could it be that Zhu Xiandao was really Zhu Xianlui's son? Everyone looked at Zhu Xiandao in shock when they thought of this. Hearing this, Zhu Zhi was also stunned. Zhu Zhi didn't expect Zhu Kun to be so smart and saw through it in an instant. What's going on? Tell me, right? Zhu Kun urged loudly. You know, Zhu Kun and Zhu Xianlui were close enemies back then. They liked to compete with each other in everything they did. It can be said that, although they were enemies, they were also friends who knew each other well. In the past few years, because of Zhu Xianlui's disappearance, it can be said that Zhu Kun even had a feeling of being invincible standing on a high place, and no one could compete with him anymore. Even when the family wanted to marry his sister to Zhu Xianlui, Zhu Kun not only did not object at all, but strongly agreed. After all, the opponent he had been competing with suddenly became his sister's fiancé. Then, he could suppress Zhu Xianlui forever as a brother. Just thinking about it made Zhu Kun excited. But he never expected that Zhu Xianlui suddenly disappeared due to an accident, and the Zhu family even released the news to the outside world, and Zhu Xianlui died in the mission. At that moment, their Xianshan Zhu family even sent a lot of people. I wanted to find out about Zhu Xianlui, but there was no news at all, just like a stone sinking into the sea. But the appearance of Zhu Xiandao gave Zhu Kun another glimmer of hope. As long as he could confirm that Zhu Xiandao was the son of that bastard, Zhu Xianlui would have to appear. Chapter 95. You performed too well. Even Zhu Gang next to him looked at Zhu Xiandao in shock, and then looked at Zhu Zhi. He also wanted to know if what his father said was true. After all, although he had not seen the events of the past with his own eyes, he had heard about it, so he naturally knew what happened in the past. As for the patriarchs of other large families, they also looked at Zhu Zhi in surprise. None of them knew about the old events of the past. As for the other heirs, they were confused and had no idea who Zhu Xianlei was. I don't know why Zhu Xianlei's name moved so many people the moment it appeared. Zhu Zhi frowned slightly, and now he felt like he wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl into. How could he explain this? Zhu Xiandao was just at the right time. Thinking from the podium, due to the relatively far distance of the audience seats, Zhu Xiandao didn't know what happened here, and Zhu Xiandao went to the treatment outside the field as soon as possible to treat his elves. The treatment was very empty. Zhu Xiandao came to the empty lounge, and after confirming that there was no one around, he took out the evolution stone from the system. Is this the evolution stone? Zhu Xiandao looked at the round stone in front of him, which looked like a Teikai pattern, with one black and one white intertwined in it. His face was full of curiosity and excitement. This was the evolution stone that could allow any elf to break through at will without any conditions. Leave this evolution stone to black and white. Zhu Xiandao thought about it and felt that no matter what, black and white were the elves that had been with him for the longest time, and the trust between the two was the highest. No matter what good things there were, of course, black and white should be given priority. Of course, Zhu Xiandao did not use it directly now, because Zhu Xiandao also knew that if the evolution took too long, then in the next battle, he would lose an elf and could not play. However, once black and white evolved successfully, Zhu Xiandao was even confident that he could handle all elves below the heaven leaking level. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao's elf was also treated. When Zhu Xiandao appeared in the audience again, he instantly attracted everyone's attention. Zhu Xiandao also smiled at everyone. In Zhu Xiandao's view, it was very normal for his performance just now to be recognized by others. But what Zhu Xiandao didn't know was that the audience was about to make a scene when he just left. On the other side, Zhang Lifen had already disappeared, and at this time, there were two young men who Zhu Xiandao didn't know on the podium, fighting there, and their skills were also very average. Brother, come here quickly. The moment Zhu Xiandao appeared, Zhu King also waved and said. Hearing the voice, Zhu Xiandao also looked in the direction of the voice, and then walked over. Zhu Xiandao found that there were also Wang Lei and Wang Xin, two siblings, besides Zhu King. Brother Zhu, you are really amazing. You didn't see the way Zhang Lifen left just now. I just wanted to laugh when I saw him. And Wang Lei also gently hit Zhu Xiandao's shoulder and said excitedly, seeing your enemy suffer a setback is simply a great pleasure in life. Yes, you didn't see his dejected look, as if the whole world was destroyed. It's so funny. I really don't know how he can get to where he is today with such a mentality. Zhu King was also laughing beside him. After all, with their status and position, everyone has encountered tit-for-tat things, and naturally they have all failed. In their eyes, Zhang Lifen, who completely lost his fighting spirit and confidence because of a failure, is just a child. Such a person is not worthy of being their opponent. Although Wang Xin next to him did not speak, he also smiled and looked at Zhu Xiandao with a gleam in his eyes. That look was as if he had just met Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao brought him a lot of surprises. It's okay. To be honest, his elves are a little stronger than mine, but his command is really a little weak, and his on-the-spot reaction speed is too slow, which gives me a lot of opportunities to counterattack. Zhu Xiandao also said modestly, okay, we are not fools. We naturally know who is stronger and who is weaker between the two of you. The gap is too big, so you don't have to be so modest. Wang Lei also said without hesitation. After all, everyone is a good friend, so there is no need to be so polite. Zhu Xiandao also smiled slightly and didn't say anything more. Then they sat together and chatted while watching the game. Not long after, it was Zhu King and Wang Xin who came on the court. Although they were opponents, the two seemed to have discussed it in advance. The whole process was very smooth, and the most important thing was that the two played very beautifully. Naturally, everyone in the audience could see at a glance that the two were playing an exhibition match, and they naturally would not point it out, and the final winner was Wang Xin. Although Zhu King was the loser, she and Wang Xin still walked out of the venue like good girlfriends. In the next few games, Zhu Xiandao also observed himself carefully, and there were only a few people he could pay attention to. When Zhu Feng appeared, Zhu Feng also showed his true strength, suppressing the opponent from beginning to end. It was just that he took out 2 Kingans and easily defeated the opponent. It can be said that he completely crushed the opponent. Zhu Xiandao did not expect that Zhu Feng would change today. His previous attitude became so cruel. After the game, after Zhu Kan gave a speech, he finally looked at Zhu Xiandao meaningfully, and this glance made Zhu Xiandao's heart beat again. Zhu Xiandao even had a feeling that he was completely seen through. On the other side, Zhu Xiandao and others were also waiting at the exit. After all, as a junior, he could leave early, but as the leader of a large family, he had to be polite in the back. Not long after, when everyone came out, everyone looked at Zhu Xiandao with a little different look. As for Zhang family patriarch Zhang Haitian, when he looked at Zhu Xiandao again, his eyes were full of ferocity. What's going on? Why do I feel that there is something wrong with the way they look at me? Zhu Xiandao also noticed something different. Zhu Zhi next to him scratched his head awkwardly, not knowing how to explain. Maybe it's because you are too strong. Your performance is too dazzling. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Private Meeting. What's going on? Looking at Zhu Zhi's expression, Zhu Xiandao suddenly had a bad feeling. Could it be that Zhu Zhi sold himself out? But that shouldn't be the case. After all, everyone is from the same family. He is his father's younger brother. How could he sell himself out? How should I tell you? To put it simply, Zhu Kan has guessed your true identity, Zhu Zhi said with some embarrassment. Hearing Zhu Zhi's words, Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched. As expected, Zhu Xiandao knew that nothing good would happen. You know, the way those people looked at him just now, none of them had good intentions. When he thought of what his father had done, Zhu Xiandao even felt that Zhu Kan had hurt his heart. By the way, there is another thing. There is a private gathering between the major families tonight. Let's have dinner together. So tonight all of us will stay at their Xianshan Zhu family. They will arrange a place for us to stay. Zhu Zhi also changed the subject and talked about some arrangements later. I know. Zhu Xiandao nodded. Zhu Xiandao didn't care much about these things. Don't think about it. You know that this group of people gathered together to discuss how to divide the benefits, and of course it is impossible to put such things on the table. It is estimated that a large group of people will intrigue again in the evening. Not long after, someone also brought them to a large courtyard. There are many rooms in this large courtyard. Zhu Xiandao also walked towards the room he had arranged. Wait a minute, someone will arrange for you to meet Zhu Kan before dinner. Zhu Zhi suddenly said to Zhu Xiandao, who was about to enter the room. After hearing this, Zhu Xiandao trembled all over. At that moment, he even felt like he was going to be eaten. Zhu Kan wanted to meet him alone, which was not a good thing. You agreed to meet him alone, so I'm dead, right? Zhu Xiandao was shocked. That's not the case. He should have something to talk to you about. I have other things to do, so I'll leave first. After Zhu Zhi finished speaking, he left quickly. After all, he couldn't let Zhu Xiandao know that he had sold him out. Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zhu Zhi, who had disappeared, with a confused look on his face. Isn't this a trap for himself? When thinking of the things his father had done in the past, Zhu Xiandao could even imagine that Zhu Kan even wanted to kill him. Could it be that he wanted revenge? But even if it was revenge, it couldn't be so blatant, and Zhu Zhi actually agreed. Zhu Xiandao was also thinking there, what exactly did Zhu Kan want to find him for? But he couldn't figure it out. After thinking about it, forget it. If you can't figure it out, then don't think about it. Anyway, the other party should not dare to attack me. Zhu Xiandao also shook his head, thinking that he thought too much. After all, he thought his father was still alive. Even if Zukan wanted to take revenge, he would first find his father. Back in the room, Zhu Xiandao also lay directly on my bed. Draw. Zhu Xiandao also did, and directly used up his remaining draw times. Congratulations to the host for getting a training card, a tracking card, and a skill machine. Looking at the things he got from the lottery, Zhu Xiandao was speechless. His luck was too bad. There were no good things at all. Use the skill machine. Get the skill of praying for rain. This skill is not bad. Every Pokémon can learn it. Seeing the skills, Zhu Xiandao smiled slightly. The more skills, the better. After all, more skills are better. There will always be a time when they are useful. Then Zhu Xiandao also released his Pokémon and let his Pokémon learn together. Squeak. The squirrel yelled at Zhu Xiandao as soon as it appeared, with dissatisfaction written all over its face. Zhu Xiandao also suddenly realized that he had been thinking too much before and actually forgot that the squirrel didn't want to stay in the Pokéball. It is estimated that the squirrel woke up when it was being treated, but he ignored it for so long. I'm so sorry. There are too many things to deal with. As compensation, I will buy you a special cookie. How about it? Zhu Xiandao said helplessly, just like coaxing a child. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Since you apologize so sincerely, I want at least 5 special cookies. The squirrel looked at Zhu Xiandao with a haughty look. Zhu Xiandao narrowed his eyes after hearing this. When did he learn to blackmail? 2. 4. Zhu Xiandao narrowed his eyes and stopped talking, with an unyielding look. 3 should be fine, right? Looking at Zhu Xiandao's expression, the squirrel said with some guilt. Okay, 3 is 3. After coaxing for a while, Zhu Xiandao began to let his elves learn new skills. Soon the elves learned them. After Zhu Xiandao put them back into the elf ball, he closed his eyes and rested. Unconsciously, Zhu Xiandao fell asleep. Dang, dang, dang. Zhu Xiandao, who was sleeping, suddenly heard a knock on the door. The male Zhu Xiandao was immediately awakened, and then stood up from the bed, and walked to the door. After opening the door, he found a middle-aged man in a butler's uniform standing at the door. Hello, Mr. Zhu Xiandao. I'm the housekeeper here. Our family would like to invite you to his study for a brief chat. The middle-aged man also bowed slightly, and said very politely. Zhu Xiandao's heartbeat suddenly accelerated. After all, Zhu Xiandao still didn't know whether the other party was looking for him or not. But after thinking about it, Zhu Xiandao didn't think it would be a good thing for the other party to look for him. But Zhu Xiandao also knew that he had no way to refuse. Then Zhu Xiandao also told the sleeping squirrel to stay alone. After the explanation, Zhu Xiandao left directly, and the squirrel looked at Zhu Xiandao and continued to sleep. Not long after, Zhu Xiandao followed the housekeeper to the front and soon came to a study. Mr. Zhu, our family is inside. You can go in directly. If there is nothing else, I will take my leave first. After the middle-aged housekeeper finished speaking, he bowed again, and then turned and left. Zhu Xiandao also knocked on the door. Come in. Soon Zukan's voice came from inside. Zhu Xiandao took a deep breath, then opened the door and slowly walked in. As soon as he entered the room, Zhu Xiandao found that the study was surrounded by bookshelves, and there was a desk in the center. Chapter 97 Get Engaged. There was a coffee table and a sofa next to the desk, and Zukan was sitting on a chair behind the desk, looking at him. Sit down, Zukan said lightly. Seeing Zhu Xiandao also walk to the sofa next to him. After sitting down, Zhu Xiandao immediately said, I don't know what happened to my family. What do you want me to do? You should know what happened between our two families. What if I say I want to ask where your father is? Zukan also teased Zhu Xiandao. Seeing Zhu Xiandao also looking at Zukan with embarrassment, he didn't know how to continue. And Zukan also smiled slightly, and then continued, don't worry, if I really want to investigate your father's affairs, it is still very simple. After all, any information about you can be found. I also know where you live, and where you live, your parents must be there too. Hearing Zukan's words, Zhu Xiandao was even more shocked. Doesn't this mean that Zukan really wants to seek revenge for his father? Seeing Zhu Xiandao's expression, Zukan smiled slightly. I think you don't know your father at all. At this point, Zukan also shook his head and then continued, you don't have to worry about this. Since your father can let you appear here, it means that he knows that he will appear in our sight and he will come back to meet us. After hearing Zukan's words, Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zukan with some doubts. Although what he said was true, Zhu Xiandao was even more confused. Then I wonder why Master Zhu came to me this time. Zhu Xiandao looked at Zukan in confusion. When Zukan heard Zhu Xiandao's words, he seriously hit Zhu Xiandao twice for 2 seconds. What is your relationship with my daughter? Hearing Zukan's words, Zhu Xiandao's face became more embarrassed. Could it be that the relationship between him and Zhu Feng has been known? Do you think I can't see that you are deliberately harming Zhao life? If I'm not mistaken, you even let my son Zhu Gang help you cheat, and there are people in the audience who are helping you deliberately build momentum. You are quite capable. Zukan also smiled slightly, with an expression that said I have seen through it. Zhu Xiandao was even more cautious. The man in front of him was definitely an old fox. He might have dug a pit for himself and waited for him to jump in. Seeing Zhu Xiandao's cautious look, Zukan laughed even more. I just want to ask, what is your relationship with my daughter? Although I have long known that my daughter has no good feelings for Zhao Lifen, I never thought that he would ask you for help. If you have no relationship, he would never ask his enemies for help. Hearing Zukan's words, Zhu Xiandao was also a little embarrassed. After thinking about it, he slowly said, we are friends. And Zukan also looked at Zhu Xiandao seriously, as if he wanted to see through Zhu Xiandao and see if he was lying. It's really just a friendship. I don't think you will help Zhu Feng to deal with the Zhao family because of this. Zukan saw through Zhu Xiandao's thoughts at a glance. Of course it's true. After all, I'm a very loyal person. For my friends, I'm willing to do anything. Zhu Xiandao said seriously. As for the idea in his heart, Zhu Xiandao naturally wouldn't say it out loud. Okay, I was at the same level as your father back then. You are still too young in front of me now. There is no need to play tricks on me. Zukan also shook his head. Zhu Xiandao was also embarrassed. What he said was the truth, but he just hid the most important point. Zhu Xiandao also looked at Zukan quietly. He always felt that the atmosphere in the room became more and more weird, especially when he saw the smile that suddenly appeared on Zukan's face. Zhu Xiandao even felt like turning around and running away. You can get engaged to my daughter. The previous grievances of the family have nothing to do with you. Zukan's sudden words made Zhu Xiandao search for a while, and then he stood up from the sofa. What did you say just now? Zhu Xiandao's eyes widened, and he looked at Zukan in disbelief. His eyes were like he was looking at a new species. Was this man joking with him? Was he setting a trap for him again? After all, Zhu Xiandao knew that the man in front of him was an old fox, and he could never easily say his true thoughts. When Zhu Xiandao came out of the study again, more than an hour had passed. Zhu Xiandao was like someone had taken away his 7 gods and 6 souls. The whole person became a little sluggish. Even after returning to his room, Zhu Xiandao lay on the bed with a sluggish face. The squirrel had already woken up, and Zhu Xiandao, who looked like a wooden man, also looked strange. It seemed that Zhu Xiandao's mind still had the conversation between Zukan and himself. I must marry Zhu Feng. Your father cheated us once, and this time I will let you pay it back. The son pays the father's debt, and you also destroyed my marriage with the Zhao family. If you don't give an explanation for this matter, you can't run away. Zhu Xiandao thought about it. Whether it was the relationship between him and Zhu Feng, or the grudges between the families, they could be written off. No matter from which aspect, it seemed that he had no other choice. However, Zhu Xiandao never expected that Zukan would sell his daughter so easily. At first, Zhu Xiandao really thought that Zukan was digging a hole for him, but now Zhu Xiandao knew that Zukan had no intention of digging a hole for him, and even if he was going to dig a hole, he would not use his own daughter as a trap. Dang dang dang. After about 10 minutes, Zhu Xiandao's door was knocked again. Zhu Xiandao also walked to the door like a wooden man, and then opened the door. Standing at the door was Zuking. Brother, it's time to eat. Let's go together. Okay, then let's go together. Zhu Xiandao said subconsciously with his eyes dull, and then walked out of the door, and the squirrel behind him flashed and appeared on Zhu Xiandao's shoulder. What's wrong? It feels like the soul has been sucked away. Zuking also looked at the dazed Zhu Xiandao with a puzzled look on her face. Not long after, they arrived at the Zhu family's restaurant, where there were already quite a few people. Zhu Xiandao and Zuking were also sitting at a table eating dinner, but Zhu Xiandao was like a robot from beginning to end. All his actions were so dull. And Zuking looked at Zhu Xiandao with more and more strange eyes. What happened in such a short time? Chapter 98. I won't apologize to trash. Sun Haiying, what do you mean? An angry voice suddenly sounded in the restaurant, and it attracted the attention of everyone in the restaurant. Even Zhu Xiandao turned around and looked. Even the people around were a little curious about the fuss here, and finally found that Sun Haiying and Sun Haitao were confronting a group of people there. The confrontation was with 3 boys. At this time, even Zhu Xiandao could feel the anger of the 3 people, as if they were fighting to the death. What happened? Zhu Xiandao also asked the teenagers at the table next to him. I don't know either. The people next to him also shook their heads. They were all so far away and had no idea what happened over there. Do you still need to think about it? It must be that Sun Haiying, the female devil, has caused trouble again. Zuking also shook his head. This was not the first time he had seen such a thing. I remember that he seemed to have a conflict with someone last year. I don't know what this woman thinks. She just loves to offend people. Zuking also said helplessly. You know, if it were a normal person, he would not offend if he could. At least he would do better on the surface. But Sun Haiying is completely different. He seems to like to offend people. He bites whoever he catches. This is why everyone calls her a female devil, because nothing good will happen if you meet this female devil. If I remember correctly, it seems that 2 of the 3 people are from the Zhao family. The teenagers at the Zhao table next to him suddenly spoke up. If that's the case, doesn't it mean that the 3 of them are from the Zhao family? Zhu Xiandao suddenly understood Sun Haiying's behavior. And Zhu Xiandao also knew that the Sun family and the Zhao family were originally enemies. From time to time, they would make some small trips to disgust each other. This kind of thing is very common in big families. Zhu Xiandao also understood that after all, the cake is so big. If you can suppress the other party, then the cake will all become yours, so it is best to cause trouble to the other party. I don't know what this brother's name is. Zhu Xiandao also reacted and asked the 3 teenagers next to him. My name is Zhu Kang, this is my second brother Zhu Zhi, and my third brother Zhu Zhe. Nice to meet you, my name is Zhu Xiandao. Zhu Xiandao also said politely. Of course we all know your name. You are a famous person who won easily, Zhao Life. I guess everyone present here knows you. Several people around him also smiled slightly. Then Zhu Xiandao suddenly remembered that among those challengers, there was a man named Zhu Zino, who had a quasi-god spirit. I wonder what the relationship between Zhu Zino and you is. Zhu Xiandao asked curiously. That's my elder brother. When Zhu Kangji mentioned his elder brother's name, his face was full of pride. Zhu Xiandao nodded. Sure enough, Zhu Xiandao also saw a familiar figure in the crowd. After all, Zhu Xiandao knew that watching the excitement and gossiping with the nature of their Shenlan country. Wait for me for a while, I'll go back and take a look. After Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, he hurried over to the familiar figure and patted the other's shoulder. Brother Wang Lei, Zhu Xiandao said with a smile. It turned out to be Zhu Xiandao. I didn't expect that there was another excitement here. Wang Lei also smiled and watched the fuss in front of him. What happened? Zhu Xiandao asked curiously. I happened to be eating next to them. I saw it all. But it wasn't a big deal between the 2 of them. Then Wang Lei slowly and briefly recounted what happened just now. Simply put, when Sun Haitao was helping Sun Haiying serve the dishes, the 3 people from the Zhao family suddenly came over. Then, because Chen Haitao didn't pay attention, he bumped into them directly. The food just happened to fall on Sun Haiying. Originally, this was not a big deal. After all, as long as they apologized, no one would care about such a small matter. However, the Zhao family and the Sun family were not on good terms. It was even more unthinkable to ask the Zhao family to apologize to the Sun family. After the collision, the Zhao family still looked disdainful. So, in the final analysis, it was the Zhao family's attitude that completely annoyed Sun Haiying. Zhu Xiandao was also a little surprised after hearing this. Before, Zhu Xiandao thought that Sun Haiying took the initiative to cause trouble, but he didn't expect that Sun Haiying was the victim this time. You dare to throw a drink at me? Are you tired of living? Zhao Hongru, who was standing in the front, looked at Sun Haiying angrily. Apologize to him. Sun Haiying said coldly. Apologize to whom? Are you asking me to apologize to this loser? Zhao Hongru laughed out loud after hearing this. After all, everyone in this circle knows Sun Haitao's strength. A person like this is simply a hopeless person. Apologizing to such a person is simply a shame. Sun Haitao, who was standing next to him, clenched his fists after hearing this. It was very uncomfortable to see the patient humiliating me in front of so many people. I wanted to rush up and beat this person up, but when I thought of my own strength, Sun Haitao immediately became frustrated. Zhu Xiandao, who was standing next to him, also frowned. No matter what, the Zhao family was indeed wrong first. It would be fine if they didn't apologize, and their attitude was so arrogant. No wonder Sun Haiying would take the initiative to help him before. If it were me, I would definitely deal with such a person. Besides, Sun Haiying and Sun Haitao were both his friends. Zhu Xiandao felt that it was a bit unreasonable for him to stand by and watch. I'm going to help later. What did you say? You want to wade into this muddy water? Wang Lei next to him also looked at Zhu Xiandao with some doubts. No matter what, Sun Haitao is also my friend, and Sun Haiying has helped me before, so as a friend, how can I not stand up? Zhu Xiandao shook his head. You are right, but since you want to fight, then go ahead. If you really fight, I will definitely help you. Wang Lei also said firmly. Wang Lei himself knew that he had a good relationship with the Zhu family. If he really got into trouble, he knew that he would be regarded as an enemy by the Zhao family without thinking. Anyway, they could all become enemies, so it would be better to stand up so that he could show himself, and if he really fought, he could make the male protagonist owe him a favor. Thank you then. Zhu Xiandao also nodded. Chapter 99. Fighting at the drop of a hat. Are you okay? Then Zhu Xiandao also walked out of the crowd and came to Sun Haitao's side. Of course I'm fine. Sun Haitao answered with a smile, but his eyes were dim. Zhao Hongru, who was opposite, saw Zhu Xiandao appear, and his face changed. What do you want to do here? I appear here naturally to help my friends. What's the problem? This restaurant is yours. What does it have to do with you where I want to appear? Zhu Xiandao said bluntly. What a troublemaker. He completely angered the Zhao family. Zuking, who was far away, covered her forehead and had a headache when she saw this scene. After this incident, it is needless to think that Zhu Xiandao has completely offended the Zhao family, and there is no room for redemption. You must know that Zhu Xiandao angered Zhang Jiao before, and now he has to deal with the Zhao family like this. Can't Zhu Xiandao be quiet for a while? I said it was obviously your fault just now. The person who bumped into me didn't even apologize. Are you so uncultured? Zhu Xiandao spoke again. What do you mean? Do you think you can be arrogant after you beat that loser from the Zhang family? Obviously, Zhao Hongru was completely enraged by Zhu Xiandao at this moment, and his eyes were full of anger when he looked at Zhu Xiandao. Hearing the words of the Zhao family, there was a bang in the distance. Then everyone turned their heads, and then Zhang Lifeng and Zhang Liz from the Zhang family also walked towards this side. The people around also laughed. They didn't expect that the people from the Zhang family were so stupid and simply offended everyone around them. Although everyone knew that Zhang Lifeng was indeed a loser, they would not say it openly. Isn't this offending people? Mr. Zhao, what do you mean by the Zhao family? Do you want to go to war with our Zhang family? Zhang Lifeng looked at Zhao Hongru in front of him even more viciously. It was embarrassing enough that he lost the game today. And now he actually said it in front of everyone. Isn't this making him lose face? How come what I said was wrong? A trainer who graduated 2 years ago lost to a newcomer who just debuted. What else can you be but a waste? Zhao Hongru was even more angry. He also realized that he had said the wrong thing just now, but now he was in a dilemma. It was impossible for him to really admit his mistake in front of so many people, right? So even if it was Zhang Lifen, Zhao Hongru would never admit his mistake. You are looking for death. As he said this, Zhang Lifen threw his hand and a luxurious Pokeball appeared in his hand. What? Do you want to fight me here? For a waste like you, do you think I'm afraid of you? The 3 people from the Zhang family actually took out Pokeballs, and they looked like they were about to fight. The people around them changed their faces when they saw this. Just because of such a small matter, could they have a fight? Well, how about everyone calm down first? After all, this is someone else's home anyway, so we'd better restrain ourselves a little. Zhu Xiandao was also a little speechless. He did not try to stop the fight, but he did not expect it to turn out like this. Of course, if it was someone else's territory, the male protagonist would naturally not care, but when he thought that, if he was really engaged to Zhu Feng, then this would also be his territory, Zhu Xiandao didn't want anyone to make trouble on his territory. Get out of the way. Just after Zhu Xiandao finished speaking, Zhang Lifen and Zhao Hongru also said in unison, and the 2 looked at Zhu Xiandao with disgust in their eyes. Zhu Xiandao was also a little speechless. He never thought that he was obviously saying good things, but the attitude of these 2 people towards him was simply extremely bad. Just because of what you said just now, if you don't apologize to me today, this matter will not end. Zhang Lifen looked at Zhao Hongru viciously. You want me to apologize to you, just because you are a waste? Do you think you have the qualifications? Zhao Hongru said unceremoniously, and he couldn't admit defeat now. Really? In that case, I'll let you see how powerful I am. Zhang Lifen was completely furious at this time. He lost the battle with Zhu Xiandao and his mentality was broken enough. He didn't expect to be ridiculed by others now. How could he bear this? The next moment, Zhang Lifen's Flame King also appeared instantly. In fact, at the same time, Zhao Hongru was not polite at all and summoned his night elf. The people who were originally watching the excitement around them now dispersed and hid far away. They just wanted to watch the show and didn't want to be involved. Zhu Xiandao also frowned slightly. If the 2 really fought, Zhu Xiandao would not help anyone, and Zhu Xiandao was willing to see that both of them were injured. But if they really fought here, this was the Xianshan Zhu family after all. They did this completely without giving face to the Zhu family, and they had already made a fuss to the point where they needed to use elves to solve the problem. You know, once the elves are deployed, there may even be a loss of life. This is not a trivial matter, because this is not a competition. This is a personal grudge. Or let's leave first. Zhu Xiandao also said to the Sun Hunteo siblings next to him. Although the 2 parties only matched 1 elf, once a fight breaks out, the restaurant may even be destroyed, and the recommendation they rely on will definitely suffer an unexpected disaster. Zhang Heiteo's siblings naturally would not have any opinions. After all, if this matter really breaks out, they are also very willing to see it. You still want to leave? Don't you understand? How did it become what it is today? The night elves use night light. Zhang Hongru spoke even more angrily. Zhang Lifen, who originally wanted to attack, did not make a move when he saw this. After all, they had long disliked Zhu Xiandao and his group. Although what Zhao Hongru said just now made him very unhappy, Zhu Xiandao and his group made him more resentful. If it weren't for Zhu Xiandao, how could he be ridiculed? He couldn't swallow this breath, so if possible, he wished that Zhu Xiandao would be solved now. Rock blast. Zhu Xiandao heard the voice and said unceremoniously. The squirrel on Zhu Xiandao's shoulder also moved its tail slightly, and a bright light appeared instantly. Then, one stone after another appeared from the ground, instantly blocking the black light. Zhang Heiteo and the others around were also shocked. They never expected that the battle would affect them so quickly. Chapter 100. Who can explain it to me? You are looking for death, aren't you? Zhu Xiandao said viciously. He never expected that the other party would start fighting immediately, and he was completely after his life. How could Zhu Xiandao let him go like this? Zhu Xiandao waved his hand, and then the disaster elf appeared instantly. Use sneak attack. The moment the disaster elf just appeared, it instantly turned into a residual image and went towards the night elf. When Zhu King, who was far away, saw this scene in front of him, he was completely stunned. The current conflict has become more and more serious. The most important thing is that Zhu Xiandao was involved. There is no need to think about this matter. The Zhu family in Sichuan can't escape. In the next moment, this disaster business suddenly appeared behind the night elf and kicked it directly, kicking the night elf away. Use shadow ball. Zhao Hongru said angrily. Blast the shadow ball with rock. Zhu Xiandao said to the squirrel on his shoulder, and then looked at the disaster elf again. Sneak attack. Zhu Xiandao's reaction speed was even faster. Even if he ordered two elves at the same time, he was not panicked at all. The next moment, several stones appeared on the ground again, blocking the dark light ball. At this time, the disaster elf also flashed behind the night elf. This time, his hands turned into sharp blades and chopped directly on the night elf. You really deserve to die. Suddenly, an angry voice sounded in the battlefield. Zhu Xiandao also turned his head in confusion and looked at the source of the voice. Then he found that, although the dark light ball just now was blocked, it inexplicably flew to the Flame King. The Flame King used flame spray on them. Zhang Lifen pointed in the direction of Zhu Xiandao fiercely. Zhang Lifen and Zhao Hongru, who originally wanted to fight, also joined hands instantly. Zhu Xiandao looked even more innocent. He was about to block the attack with his hands, but then a few voices suddenly came from behind him. Blue's water gun. Emperor Sea Lion, water escape. Lightning spirit, 100,000 volts. As the three voices finished speaking, two water attacks shot out from behind Zhu Xiandao and collided directly with the flame jet. On the other side, another lightning flashed by and chopped directly on the Flame King. The terrifying attack made the Flame King's original flame jet disappear instantly, and at this time, the two water columns also hit the Flame King directly. The Flame King screamed after three attacks hit him. Zhu Xiandao's mouth twitched slightly, and finally turned his head to see He Tao and Sun Haiying behind him, as well as Wang Lei who had taken action. It was obvious that he was not short of people in terms of numbers, and if a fight really started, Zhu Xiandao would not be afraid at all. At this time, Zhang Lifen gnashed his teeth. He never thought that the other party would use the human wave tactic. How could he admit defeat? The Flame King uses trampling. Hearing Zhang Lifen's words, Zhu Xiandao frowned slightly. You have to know that this is a restaurant. If the Flame King tramples, you know that this restaurant will be destroyed. Even the people who were hiding far away were shocked after hearing Zhang Lifen's words. You have to know that once Zhang Lifen uses trampling, even they can't avoid it. This is simply an unprovoked disaster. Flame Monkey, Flame Fist to stop him. Just as the Flame King just raised his foot, at this time, another voice sounded in the distance. The next moment, a figure appeared, and Zhu Xiandao appeared in an instant. He only felt a shadow flashing past him, and then the Flame King was instantly knocked out. Flame King talent level 5, level 75. Seeing the Flame King in front of him, Zhu Xiandao's eyes twitched. It was obvious that this was simply the elf of those big guys. After all, it is impossible for this group of young people to have such a high-level elf. Turning around, he found that the patriarchs of the major families were also slowly striding towards this side. Many people had dark faces. Have you had enough trouble? Zukan said with a dark face. Seeing so many big men appear, everyone present also took back their elves, just like children who had made mistakes, standing there and not even daring to raise their heads. At this time, the squirrel also raised his head slightly and came to Zhu Xiandao's shoulder. What do you mean? Do you want to tear down our Zhu family? Zukan said with a dark face. You know, this is his territory, but this group of people actually fought here. If he hadn't arrived in time, I'm afraid that his Zhu family would definitely be turned upside down by this group of people. But seeing the restaurant being destroyed by them, Zukan was still extremely angry. You know, usually at this time, even if there is any conflict, there will be no war on the spot, but this group of people did not give him face at all, and made a big fuss in his own territory. What do they think of themselves as the master? Zhang Lifen and Zhao Hongru, who were so arrogant just now, also had a look of fear on their faces. You know, this is not an existence they can deal with, and they didn't get any benefits, and were caught and restricted. It was really embarrassing. Zhu Xiandao was calm and composed. He didn't care about this kind of thing at all. The other big guys present were also very upset. They were just in a meeting. In the middle of the meeting, someone suddenly broke in and said that there was a fight in the restaurant. They hurried over here. This group of young people really don't know the rules more and more. Zun Kun looked at the sword with a dark face and then found that there were actually 4 families involved. The Sichuan Zhu family, the Zhang family, the Sun family, and the Zhao family. This is already a mess. What happened? Who can explain to me what's going on? Zhao Xianyang, a patriarch of the Zhao family, also looked at his son Zhao Hongru with a gloomy face. If Zhu Xiandao and Zhang Lifen were fighting, he could understand it, but what was his son involved in? Zhao Hongru remained silent, feeling anxious and unsure about what to say. Wang Lei, explain to me what happened just now. Wang Hangjin changed his carefree attitude. This was no small matter. Fighting on someone else's territory was totally disrespectful to the owner. In the end, they were in the wrong. Wang Lei was stunned after hearing this, and then he honestly told him what happened just now. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.